Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto quits after the Forbidden Scroll incident, and leave the village part 1. Before I start, please do support. For more amazing content and comments for part 2, do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Sarutobi had fought many battles, both often on the field, on the front lines and behind a desk. He has defeated many foes, outsmarted council members and ninja alike, but never in all his years did he expect this. Sitting in his office, the elderly Hokage studied the boy before him. He was young, still in his teens. His hair was spiked and blonde, on his cheeks were 3 scars, looking like a set of whiskers. It was Naruto Uzumaki. He had returned to the village after quitting the ninja academy when he was 12. "Hello again, old man," he said casually, leaning back into the chair with a smirk. The Hokage didn't know what to say. 3 years had passed since he was forced to watch the young boy storm out of the village wearing a dirty orange jumpsuit. But now he sat across from him wearing a black business suit with a red undershirt and black tie, a pair of slim reflective sunglasses on his head. "Naruto," he started, unsure of what to say. "You look well." The blonde smirked. "I wish I could say the same to you, old man. You look well older." He let out a large grin for what felt like the first time in years. "It's great to see you again too," he chuckled. "Looks like you've been pretty well off since you left." Naruto nodded. "I'm very well off. You're looking at the owner of nearly a half-dozen first-class restaurants, and quite a few other lower-class ones. I'm sure you've heard of the Black Rose Corporation that sprung up a year ago." Sarutobi blinked in astonishment. "That was you?" The Black Rose Company was famous for opening strings of high-class restaurants, and even lower-class ones for the less wealthy. The higher-class ones were always named the Black Rose, but the others were hard to point out, ranging from simple food stands to fast food places. Naruto smirked and nodded. "I've always had a love for cooking, traveled around for a while, learning to cook everything I could. Turns out that people loved my food. I started out working in a small family-run business, and quickly turned the place into one of the most popular in the city. With that, it was easy to buy out any rundown or bankrupt restaurants and turn them around. But I'm not here to rub my success in your face or anything, if I gave you that impression. I'm here on business." "Go on." Naruto sat up. "There are certain properties that I want to buy. I want full ownership of the land and came to you because I trust you to do so. I don't want your little council to try and worm their way into my business to line their pockets. I've shut down 2 of my places and put many people out of work because of councils trying to take money out of my business, saying that it was for unforeseen taxes." Sarutobi could practically hear the disgust dripping in his tone. "The first area is within the walls, in Sector 5. It's a forest right now, but I'm planning on opening a nice place that connects to nature. The second is the shop near the Hokage monument, the one that fell into debt. I want to open an aquatic restaurant there." The old man nodded and leafed through some papers. "Well, Naruto-kun, I do believe that I can do that for you. Both areas are up for sale and I have the deeds right." He stopped and opened his drawer, pulling out a large folder and leafing through it, pulling out 2 sheets. "Here." Naruto watched him fill out a few forms and sign them when he was told to. "Now will that be cash or check?" Naruto pulled out a black checkbook and wrote the correct amount on it, signing it and everything. "Check." Sarutobi took the offered paper and stored it away in his desk. "Well, Naruto-kun, you are now the proud owner of both places," he congratulated, shaking the boy's hand. "I'll have the deed and I have a copy of everything sent to you as soon as possible." Naruto nodded. "Thank you, old man. It was nice doing business with you." Sarutobi was slightly hurt by the fact that Naruto was ready to leave, having finished business, and not wanting to say and talk after being gone for so long. But he knew that Naruto had every right to want to be away from him, seeing as he didn't do much to help him when he was young. He could remember the day he left, angry at being tricked by Mizuki, feeling betrayed by everyone around him. When the ANBU brought him in, Naruto announced that he was dropping out of the academy and left. No more, no less. "Naruto-kun," he called suddenly as the blonde grabbed the door handle. "I'm sorry about everything. I should have tried harder to help you when you were little." Naruto didn't say anything for a second. "Don't worry, old man. Things like that don't matter to me anymore." Watching Naruto leave, Sarutobi gave a small smile for what felt like the first time in forever. Leaving the tower, Naruto met up with a rather rough-looking man in a black suit that bowed to him. "Sir," Naruto motioned for him to follow as he walked by, "I've acquired the properties. Inform Tazuna-san that I have a need for his skill. He will be paid the usual rate, and tell him that if he can hurry up and finish before deadline, I'll give him a bonus." "Of course, Lord Chairman." Naruto stopped and turned to the man, speaking lowly as not to be heard by too many people who were already giving them looks. "Also, send a message to the heads to prepare for a meeting. I'll inform them of the date and time a few days before." "Hi." Naruto watched for a second as he didn't move and quickly got annoyed. "Well, you're dismissed." "Oh, of course, Lord Chairman." Naruto shook his head with an annoyed sigh and started back walking. After a minute, he started to notice the glances that people gave him and even heard a few of the elderly women talking in hushed tones about how he looked like a nice, respectable young man. Even one commented on how she wished her granddaughter would try and date someone like him instead of the young thugs she normally did. "Lord Chairman." Naruto sighed at the voice and turned around to see an older man running towards him, while huffing like he had ran a marathon. "Hello, Nishiki," the blonde deadpanned while rolling his eyes. Nishiki was a young, clean-cut man in his mid-20s. He wore a brown business suit with a pair of slim box-frame glasses over his eyes. He was very smart for his age and is a wizard with numbers, but the one problem was, "Don't hello Nishiki me," he hissed. "I was told to watch over you, chairman or not. The board members insist that I make sure nothing happens to you. You're too important to the company to lose." Naruto snorted. "How funny, they send an accountant to watch my back. What you gonna do when someone tried to mug us?" he questioned. Nishiki lost all his steam and looked down, kicking at the dirt with his polished brown shoe. "Well sir, we all know the rumors about you. I figured that they only sent me to try and keep you out of trouble." Naruto stared at the man for a minute before turning away with a snort. Nishiki lowered his head in shame and slowly trekked after his boss. He didn't know the chairman personally, working as one of the many accountants for the Black Rose Company. But ever since he was accepted into the position he had heard the rumors and stories about the younger man. "Nishiki, hurry the hell up," Naruto ordered. The dark-haired man shook his head and saw that Naruto was way ahead of him. "Sorry sir." Naruto shook his head. "It's bad enough that I have to have a babysitter, Nishiki. Don't make me wait on you while you daydream." "Yes sir." Naruto turned abruptly into an alley, then stopped and gave an annoyed huff. "Nishiki," he started without looking at him, "I'm easy to get along with for the most part. I really don't know much about you besides the fact that you're smart, and dash." Nishiki cut him off, beaming at the compliment. "Thank you sir." The blonde clinched his eyes with a frown. "And you really don't know me, but I'm starting to sense that you're a kiss ass and a bit of a bitch. So why don't you go to the dry cleaners and pick up the suit I dropped off this morning?" "But sir, I was told to." Naruto spun around and grabbed him, his arm around his neck with the man's cheek pressed into his side. "As I was saying," he snarled, "go pick up my suit, before I remove your thumb with a meat cleaver." Naruto leaned closer to the man's head and whispered, "Do not forget Nishiki. I am the chairman of the Kurabara clan, my word is law. The board may have ordered you to try and keep me out of trouble and I won't stop you, but you will do as I say or else." Nishiki nodded frantically and Naruto let him go with a frown on his face. Dropping to his knees and bowing, Nishiki's forehead nearly touched the stone walkway. "Forgive me, Lord Chairman. Get up and go get my suit from the cleaners," he ordered harshly. "Take it to my hotel room and leave it there." "Yes, Lord Chairman." Nishiki stayed like that until he couldn't hear the footsteps anymore. He had learned his lesson with dealing with the chairman. There was a reason that no one challenged him. The rewards that came with being in his good graces were great, but his wrath was near godlike. Naruto walked out of the alleyway and onto the main road. Straightening his coat again, he walked off towards the red light district, his home away from home. Jiraiya sailed through the air above the village, leaping from building to building while scanning the roads below. His sensei had just told him about Naruto, Minato's kid, visiting him. He had been disappointed to hear that Naruto had left the village years ago, giving up on being a ninja. He had promised Minato and Kushina that he would train the boy when he became a genin, and had been waiting until that day to return. He would have came sooner, but he had a spy network to take care of, so that kept him busy most of the time, meaning that he wasn't able to do his duty of being a real godfather to the boy. But when he returned, excited to meet the blonde, Sarutobi informed him of Naruto's decision to leave the village due to being tricked and betrayed by his Chunin teacher. If it hadn't been for the fact that Ibiki had already taken care of the man, the Toad Sage would have murdered him. But now that he was told that Naruto was in the village, he had a chance to meet him and fulfill his promise. He would have done it years ago, but Naruto seemed to just drop off the map. "Let's see, blonde hair, black suit, blonde hair, black suit," he told himself while scanning the roads, his long white ponytail whipping around behind him. He landed on a rooftop and saw a large group of people gathered around in a circle with a pair of men attacking another man. Across from him was a small 3-man unit of ANBU, watching the fight and preparing to break it up should it turn deadly. ANBU were told to only break up a fight between ninjas and civilians, due to the ninja having an advantage in potently killing the civilian or dating buildings. If the fighters were both civilian, they would usually wait until the slower police force stopped them, only jumping in should one pull a knife or something. The Toad Summoner jumped over. "What's going on here?" he questioned. "Jiraiya-sama, we were patrolling the area when 2 civilians accused another of cheating in the small gambling house. They threatened to attack, but the other said that they would ruin the place, so he took them out into the streets. Following normal procedure, we watched to assure that neither tries to kill the other," the squad leader told him. He turned to get a good look at the fighters and cursed as he saw the 2 civilians pull pocket knives on a blonde man wearing a dark red shirt and black pants. The ANBU and the pervert started to break up the fight, but as quickly as the 2 pulled the knives, the blonde knocked them both out, kicking one in the face and punching the other in the nose. 10 minutes before, Naruto walked into the small gambling house and looked around with a smirk. If it was one thing he liked to do, it was to gamble. Especially with his luck. He didn't win all the time, but if he did, then it wouldn't be fun. He quickly found himself a place at a oichokabu table, seated on a fluffy pillow while the dealer shuffled cards. The game was older and more traditional, played in the old days with rules similar to other games like blackjack and baccarat. The goal was to reach a total with the final digit closest to 9 using only 3 cards. He won quite a few times, annoying the 2 other players at the table who kept drinking sake. And finally, they got pissed off as he looked at his cards with a smirk. "Son of a bitch!" The first yelled, jumping up, "You cheater, there's no way you can keep winning." "Yeah, ever since you started playing you kept winning," the guy's friend added. Naruto looked up at the 2 who were standing, still sitting down on the pillow, I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. The fur seethed. Don't give me that shit, admit it. Admit what? He kicked the table over, sending the cards and sake bottles to the floor. You bitch. You know what I'm talking about. Admit that you were cheating or I'll kick your ass. Naruto huffed and stood up, unbuttoning his coat. I did not cheat. Now, let's take this outside. I wouldn't want to ruin this establishment's furniture more than you already have. The pair stormed outside, following Naruto, who shrugged off his jacket and laid it over the handrail just outside the door. Now, he said, popping his neck and rolling his shoulder. Let's hurry this up. I have things to do. You'll be eating through a straw when I'm through with you. Naruto leaned aside and kneed the man hard in the stomach, grabbing his head and tripping him to the ground. The other man tried to hit him from behind, but the blonde spun around, elbowing him in the face. Naruto exclaimed while checking his watch. 6 seconds, that's a new personal best. Fucker! Punk number 1 yelled, pushing himself off the ground. I'll kill you. Naruto dodged the business end of a knife as he lunged at him. A quick roundhouse kick later and he was out cold, the knife stabbing in the dirt a little ways away. The C-count punk tried to stab him too, but like before, Naruto turned around and nailed him in the nose. The crowd laughed and cheered the blonde for the good fight, but quickly dispersed as ANBU appeared to arrest the 2 men for attempted murder. Nice of you to show up, Naruto mused. Why is it that police or any law enforcement for that matter are always late? The ANBU ignored him and left to imprison the 2 men. Naruto? Said blonde, turned around at hearing his name being called. Yeah? Jiraiya walked up to the blonde. Naruto Uzumaki? That's my name. The pervert smiled. I'm Jiraiya. I've been looking for you for a while. I was a friend of your parents. Naruto walked over and picked up his suit coat before pulling it on. Well, Jiraiya, I wasn't hiding of anything, so you must not have been looking too hard, he said dismissively while whipping imaginary dust from the sleeves. The blonde walked back into the gambling house and pulled a small stack of cash from the inside of his coat. Here, this is for any damages, he told the manager who walked over. Jiraiya followed him inside and watched this in interest. Naruto walked over to the flip table and found his cards, which were somehow still together and face down. Well, ain't that a bitch, he mused, flipping them over. 8, 9, and 3 Yakuza. A week had passed since Naruto had set up shop back in his home village. The place in Sector 5 was coming along nicely. Tazuna from Wave quickly rallied his builders and a caravan of workers were knocking on the village gates before they even opened just 3 days later in the early morning. He and Tazuna had been business associates for a while. After Gato drained their town of nearly all their funds, he, being the businessman he was, invested in the town. It was more of a charity thing than anything else, but Tazuna wouldn't accept a handout, and they came to a compromise. They'd pay only part of it back but build stuff for him at a discount in the future. With all the business he gave them, contracting them on most of the larger projects, Tazuna was able to make his little band of builders into an official company and expand. Tazuna supervised most of the sites for him personally, sending out other supervisors for other jobs. They, as in Naruto and Tazuna, had a tradition to celebrate once the job was complete. Naruto cooking up a large diner for the workers for free as a thank you and serving some of the best steak money could buy. Tazuna had told him once that he had a few of his workers start a fight over who got to go, knowing that jobs for him normally reeled in a huge bonus and a high-class meal. Right now, the builders were split into 2 teams, the largest working on the foundation in Sector 5 while the smaller group was fixing up the building under the Hokage monument. The place under the monument was going to be a tea house, popular among the stuck-up, but rich clans. He stood in the construction site, reading over the plans while the old man yelled out instructions to the men. Dressed in a light gray suit with a red shirt under it and a bright yellow hard hat on his head, he watched as the men ripped up the flooring so that they could redo it. So Naruto-san, the wiring was in near perfect condition, the old man spoke, turning back around and looking at the younger boy. My men are now working on the floors and will start on the walls soon. Naruto nodded and crossed his arms. Good, you're ahead of schedule. As soon as everything is up to date and the modifications are made to certain places, you can move your men to the other side. My men can handle setting up and getting this place off the ground. Naruto stopped and pulled a brown envelope from his inside coat pocket. Here's a little bonus for your guys. Some of it goes towards the hotels you're staying in, but other than that, split it up into parts. Tazuna accepted it and opened it to take a peek inside. Spying the thick stack of bills, he smiled and stuffed it in his pocket. Thanks, I'll give them their cuts later. Naruto nodded and turned on his heel. I'll be stopping by later to check on the progress. See you later, Tazuna-san. Tazuna waved at him as the blonde removed his hard hat and left the construction site. Sir, Naruto looked behind him and sighed at the person running up to him. Nishiki, what a surprise. He had left Nishiki at the inn early in the morning, leaving him to heal from a massive hangover from the night before. Looking at his watch, Naruto nodded. 2:43, 6 hours since I left the inn. That's a new record for you. Nishiki gave him a glare. I should have known that you planned this. He tried to yell only to wince and grab his hair. Naruto chuckled. For a desk jockey, you handled yourself very well. Drinking all that sake last night and still getting up the next day, I must say, I'm proud. Most people would be too hungover to move until the next day. Nishiki groaned and rubbed his temples. I can understand why, sir. How much did I drink? The blonde snickered. Enough to knock out a horse. How you're up and about I'll never know. Nishiki groaned as the sounds of hammering reached his ears. He had thought that the blonde was starting to like him, taking him out to drink at a club. He had been suspicious at first, but after 3 drinks he started having trouble remembering where his keys were. So waking up that morning with a crippling hangover surprised him. After all, he didn't even remember going to sleep. Later that day he had realized what his boss had done, getting him so drunk that he couldn't follow him around the next day. He shook his head and looked around to see that the blonde chairman had once again left him in the middle of the street. Cursing, he jogged after him and resumed his assignment of trying to keep him out of trouble. Sir, you know that the village will be hosting a festival soon, right? Nishiki spoke after a minute. Naruto nodded. Yeah, something about the how long it's been since the village was founded, he said dismissively, but the important thing is the business opportunities that it presents. Desperate shopkeepers want loans to stock up and hopefully make a huge profit from the tourists. Gamblers from all over come and try to make some extra cash, and back ally gambling just makes my black heart flutter at the possibilities. Nishiki, I get it, you came here because of the festival. Bingo. But if you here during the festival, won't you run into her? Naruto stopped in the middle of the road with wide eyes. Didn't think of that. Fuck. The last thing I need is that gold-digging slut chasing me around. He frowned at the thought. Screw it, I'll deal with that bitch when it comes up. What a great way to start an afternoon, Nishiki thought, now he's pissed off. Naruto frowned to himself as he thought about having to deal with her at all. But like he said, he would deal with it when it came up. Hey Gaki! Someone called from off to the side. Naruto looked over with a twitching eye and saw a pervert walking over from the bushes that were planted next to the fence of the women's hot spring. Jiraiya, Naruto droned loudly, making sure to catch everyone's attention. Why am I not surprised to see you around these parts? Peeking into the hot springs again, I see. The white-haired man started to sweat at the glares he received from the people who heard. And now Naruto, you shouldn't spread rumors like that, he said, trying to avoid an ass-kicking. Soon all the glares faded and the women left to do what they had to do, not wasting time to stand and glare at the old pervert. Naruto looked at him over his sunglasses. Rumors are only rumors as long as no one knows they're true. I happen to know that they are a fact. Now care to tell me what you want? Grumbling, the perverted man crossed his arms. Well, I wanted to know if you wanted me to train you. You sorta blew me off last time. Naruto cocked his head to the side with a frown. I happen to remember you stopping to gaze at the girls swimming under the waterfall. I simply walked away to give you your privacy while you played with yourself like the sad perverse old man you are. Jiraiya sputtered. What? I did not. Naruto shook his head. Nishiki, go back to the inn and get some rest. You look like you need it. I'll be here with this pervert, so run along. He made shooing motions with his hand, and the man sighed, half annoyed and half relieved that he could now take care of his headache. Jiraiya led Naruto to the closest training ground. Okay kid, let's start with some basic sparring. Don't worry, I'll go easy on you. They got into position and waited for one to make a move. Naruto watched the older man's movements. His legs were tensed and ready to move when he needed. Hands closed but not clenched, ready to slap any punches away or catch kicks. It was a good sparring idea, but he didn't see the man stretch before getting ready, meaning that his tense legs would cramp up sooner or later. Just as he suspected, Jiraiya winced slightly after a minute and relaxed his muscles, giving him a split-second jump forward and thrust his leg out. It connected with a thump and Jiraiya stumbled back while Naruto smirked at him. Jiraiya blinked and touched his chest where Naruto's dress shoe had connected, then looked up to see a smirking blonde. There's a difference between going easy and letting someone win, he told the man blandly. Are you even trying? The Sannin took a quick jab at the blonde and cursed as he missed by a hair, allowing Naruto to get under his guard. Naruto pushed forward and jammed his shoulder into the man's gut, knocking him off his feet and then tackling him into a tree. A puff of smoke alerted him that the man had replaced himself just as hit the tree trunk. Pushing himself back and dropping the log, Naruto turned around just in time to be punched in the jaw, causing him to stumble back. Jiraiya smirked as Naruto stumbled and shook his head. The blonde then looked at him and smirked back before spitting out some blood and exposing a busted lip and bloody teeth. That was a good one, he complimented while the gash on his lip visibly healed before the man's eyes. I think it's time to take it up a notch. Jiraiya readied himself and Naruto reached under his jacket to pull out a dagger similar to the kind that samurai would carry. The pervert cursed as he dodged slice after slice, civilian or not. Naruto was giving him a tough time. Leaning back to keep from loosing his neck, he felt the blonde kick his knee while he was distracted and fell on his back. Damn it kid, that hurt. Jiraiya hissed, sitting up and rubbing his knee. Naruto snorted and relaxed. It's a spar, get over it and thank Kami you're still breathing. True, but you made a huge mistake. Jiraiya disappeared in a puff of smoke, signaling that he was only a shadow clone. The real one appeared behind the blonde and stole his knife away before holding it to his neck. Never relax your guard until you're sure it's over. Naruto hummed while keeping still. He knew how sharp his own blade was, unlike Jiraiya. One slip and his throat was open like an extra mouth. But little did Jiraiya know, Naruto fought ninjas before and he hated to lose. Jiraiya was sure he had won and made the same mistake as Naruto, so when he felt something slam into his ankle he was stunned. Naruto kicked the man in the ankle with the heel of his shoe and grabbed the knife at his throat by the blade with one hand and then reached over his shoulder and grabbed the front of Jiraiya's shirt with his other hand before using all his strength to toss him. As he landed and quickly got to his feet, Naruto quickly reached under his jacket once again with both hands and pulled his final two blades out. Had anyone seen it they would have thought they were watching a movie. They both froze, looking into each other's eyes. Jiraiya held the blade to Naruto's neck once again, just an inch away, while Naruto held a pair of meat cleavers to Jiraiya's, just as close as the blade was to him. "You're pretty quick for an old guy," Naruto told him evenly, his sunglasses over his eyes. "And you're pretty good for a teenaged civilian," Jiraiya replied. They backed off and Jiraiya felt something warm hit his foot. Looking down he saw blood and looked up to see blood dripping from the handle of Naruto's meat cleaver. The blonde put his 2 blades away under his coat and looked at his palm. Jiraiya had kept a hold on the knife when he tossed him over his shoulder, and sliced his hand pretty bad when the blade was pulled from his hand. "You're bleeding," the pervert stated while looking at the blood dripping from his hand. Naruto just clenched his hand and waved it off. "I'm fine, but I want my knife back." Jiraiya returned the knife. "Like you need it, you got 2 meat cleavers under that jacket." "For good reason too," Naruto shot back. "Like what?" Naruto looked him dead in the eye. "Protection." Seeing that he wasn't going to go into it, Jiraiya dropped the issue. "Well, I can see that you can handle yourself, but what about any ninja training?" Naruto finished putting his knife away and shrugged. "Besides what I got in the academy, not much. I taught myself how to increase my speed and power by channeling chakra certain ways, but besides that, nothing." They worked on chakra control for a while. Once they finished, Naruto's respect for the man increased ever so slightly. Not much, but he no longer considered him a perverted waste of space, just a perverse old man. Naruto straightened out his sunglasses. "Maybe I was wrong about you, old man. Come and find me if you ever need something," he said, figuring that the old ninja would be a good ally in the future. He gave him a small wave and walked away. Walking back to the village, towards the hotel, Naruto absently cursed himself as he looked at the blood stains on his suit. He couldn't blame nobody but himself for it because it was his own damn fault for wearing a light gray suit. Not only that, but it was his best casual suit. The only thing better he had was a few tailored suits. Could this day end any sooner? He sighed to himself. A few hours later, around 8 at night, Naruto walked out of the shower in his suite with nothing but a pair of boxer briefs and a towel over his head. Absently drying his hair, the blonde looked over to the dresser and groaned at the sight of a stack of letters bearing the Black Rose Company seal. "Can't you people do something without my approval for once?" he muttered while walking over and leafing through them. They knew better than to do something stupid with his business. But it didn't mean that they had to ask permission to replace broken things or remodel a place. Pushing them aside, he dropped the towel on the floor carelessly, and laid back on his bed with a sigh. More of his guys were coming to Konoha to help work the festival. He also wanted to hold the clan meeting during the week-long party too, so the heads of each branch were coming too. It was dangerous to hold these meetings, with rivals wanting to kill certain people of the organization and the law investigating some of them. A gathering like this was definitely going to draw attention, but he wasn't worried. He had been so careful that no one knew he was the head of the clan. Only that he was an honest, hard-working businessman who worked to make his restaurants some of the best ever. A knock at his door broke him from his train of thought. "Room service," he heard a woman call from the other side, making him smirk. He got up and opened the door, revealing a sexy redhead leaning on his door frame dressed in a kimono. He grinned at her. "I don't remember ordering anything to eat," he said while pulling her to him. The girl giggled. "Oh Lord Chairman, aren't you just a little hungry?" she asked while rubbing the front of his underwear. Naruto grabbed her ass. "Oh, I'm sure you can help me work up an appetite." He pulled her into his room and slammed the door shut. Good thing he rented out the only penthouse suite on the top floor. The girl was a screamer. The sound of breaking glass and crying echoed throughout a small shop in the slums of Konoha. "I thought I told you, old man, if you don't pay the protection money you owe us, we might not be able to save it from some unfortunate accident." The old man watched in horror as 3 young men took bats to everything in his shop, breaking things in his little convenience store. His daughter hid behind him in fear as they broke everything they could, the coolers, racks of snacks. They even broke the register, and were taking their money. The door to the shop opened, the little bell above the door ringing wildly as it swung open. Standing in the door was a dark-haired man with a scraggly goatee eye patch over his right eye and a cigarette in his mouth. "Oi, what do we have here?" he asked lazily while blowing smoke from his nose. "A bunch of street thugs trying to run a protection racket. Don't you kids know better than to try and play with the big boys?" The thugs looked at him in anger. "Who do you think you're talking to?" one asked with a sneer, looking like a freak. The man looked down at his clothing. He wore a pair of black pants and matching dress shoes on his feet, while he had a snakeskin suit coat over his bare chest. "Hey man, these are worth more than you," he said slowly with a small laugh. "But a pile of shit is worth more than you, so that's not really saying anything." In a rage, one of the young men tried to swing his bat at the older man's head. Suddenly the laziness in his eyes faded and were replaced with an insane glint. He ducked under the swing and punched him hard in the gut, knocking the breath out of him and forcing him to drop the bat. Picking it up, the lazy man laid it over his shoulder and smirked lazily at the other 3. Next, the lazy man made quick work of the 3 young thugs and finished his smoke. "Kids these days, no respect," he sighed before looking to the elderly man. "I'm sorry about your place, sir." The elderly man bowed in thanks. "Thank you, sir, thank you. These thugs have been demanding protection money from us. We barely had enough to support ourselves," he cried. "The police units barely come through here, so this neighborhood is covered in gangs. My name is Hachi, and this is my daughter Fumichi." The man nodded. "Goro Majima." "Well, Mr. Majima, I thank you, but once the other gangs hear about this, we'll be overrun by other punks." Goro shook his head. No you won't, from now on, you are under the protection of the Majima family. The old man's eyes hardened. You're just another thug, he started, only for Goro to cut him off. No, not a thug, I am Goro the Mad Dog Majima, patriarch of the Majima clan. Much better than a lowly street rat like these punks. He showed that by kicking the one closest to him with a cruel smirk. Nishiki knocked on the door to his boss's room. The suites were more like small houses, with a nice-sized living room, a kitchen, bathroom and a bedroom. What is it? Called an annoyed voice. Sir, Mr. Majima has arrived in the village. He called through the door. The man stood there for a minute with his ear to the door and heard the sound two people getting dressed. Suddenly the door opened and he stumbled back as a redhead pushed him out of the way and walked down the hall towards the elevator. Naruto leaned in the doorway and watched as Nishiki gazed at the girl's swaying hips dumbly. Enjoying the view? He asked, making the man blush and look away from the girl, who turned and entered the elevator. Nishiki turned back to his boss, who only had on a pair of pants. Yes. Naruto gave a small laugh. Good, because if you said no I'd have to think you were a little gay, he joked. No straight man can resist an ass like that. The other man nodded, his glasses slightly fogged up. I agree. Naruto looked at him and shook his head. Nishiki, if you blush because of that you really need to lose your virginity. He yawned while walking back into his room, making the man sputter out denials. But whatever, let me get dressed so we can start the day. Gotta find Goro before he gets locked up for starting a fight again. Goro was a great and loyal friend, but his nickname of Mad Dog was well deserved. One minute he was calm and lazy, but when he got into a fight he was hot-headed and merciless. But the only problem with associating with him was that he was proud to boast his Yakuza status, and to be seen with him made others question whether or not you were one too. He often openly showed his demon tattoo during fights and proudly boasted about the greatness of the Majima family. At least he has enough sense not to openly talk about the clan. Pulling on his white long-sleeve shirt and tucking it in, Naruto buttoned it up and walked over to the closet where he had all his stuff hung up. Inside was a few of his suits covered in thick plastic to protect them, and a few suitcases. Unzipping one of the plastic covers he pulled out a black vest with a small silver pocket watch that had a chain connected to one of the buttons while the watch was tucked into a small pocket on the front. Lord Chairman, have you checked your mail this week? Nishiki called from the living room. Naruto paused and saw the pile of unopened letters on the floor, having been thrown aside the night before. Sure did, he called back without a hint of deception. Naruto looked around and found his butterfly knife under his shirt from the night before. He wasn't going to wear his coat today, so he couldn't bring his normal stuff with him like he normally would. To complete his look, he pulled on a pair of black boots with shiny silver plates over the toes. He was tempted to climb out the window and leave Nishiki waiting in the room, but climbing down 5 or 6 stories wasn't the most enjoyable thing he had done before, and he wasn't up for that shit again. Alright, Nishiki, let's go. The blonde walked down the hall towards the elevator with his faithful dog assistant following behind him. Okay sir, I've put together everything you need to do today and wrote it on this list. Nishiki started while the elevator dinged and opened, making Naruto sigh as he walked in and pressed the button to go to the bottom floor. You have an appointment with the Hokage in an hour to finalize some paperwork. You also have a few meetings with people who want a loan, and you need to okay a few shipments from Wave as well as a large shipment of tea leaves from Tea Country. Naruto had a frown on his face. Tell me again why I have to give my okay to ship crates of tea and fish. Because sir, you run things with your restaurants personally. Tea shops and houses fall under that category, Nishiki said without missing a beat. You also need to meet with Mr. Majima sometime today, hopefully without having to bail him out of a Konoha jail. Naruto gave him a sharp look. You're starting to overstep your bounds, Nishiki. Goro outranks you and he can hurt you for badmouthing him, he said with a warning tone, glaring out the corner of his eye. Forgive me, Lord Chairman. The elevator dinged and the doors slid open. Naruto stepped out and turned on the man. I let you get away with a lot of things, Nishiki, but you will respect the others that outrank you. I let you yell at me for tricking you, mostly because I find it entertaining, but you will give him the respect he deserves. Naruto reached in and pressed the button to send the elevator back up to the top floor, and for your information, he took the fall for me so that I wouldn't be investigated. Think about things before you say them. After being scolded like a child, Nishiki looked down in shame just as the elevator shut and took him back up. Naruto really didn't feel like dealing with people who needed loans. Most were degenerate gamblers so deep in debt that if it was him they owed, he would literally demand an arm or leg. So before going to meet with the Hokage, Naruto had one of his men send word to the shipping company to go on and ship his stuff out, then had another take care of the loan business, which really freed up his day. Loan sharking was frowned upon in most places because it caused problems with not only the people getting a loan, but the banks as well because they lose business. In some places, a shark could get in deep shit if they were caught, prison, heavy fines, sometimes their possessions were seized and auctioned off, that is, if they owned anything there. Naruto entered the tower and made his way up to the Hokage's office, only to be knocked to the ground as he rounded a corner. Papers flew around the hall along with a few folders and scrolls. A young woman cursed and scrambled to pick them up, saying that her seal would have her head if she messed up her paperwork again. The blonde got up and started helping her pick up some of the files. Excuse me, miss, he said with a smile. I believe that you dropped this when you bumped into me. The girl looked up at him and blushed. Oh, sorry about that, she muttered while taking the small stack. I've been working all night and I'm pretty tired. It's all right, He spoke while examining the top file with narrowed eyes. She nodded to him and smiled. Thanks again for the help, she told him before jogging off. Naruto watched as she rounded the corner and frowned. He had seen the top file's label and it didn't please him at all. It seemed to him that Konoha has started an investigation on some of his businesses, not that they knew it was his, but they knew about a couple of the clan's operations, and from the small note he saw it was a small-time drug ring, mostly dealing with level 1 drugs like marijuana. The second was the crew that was running it. Most weren't even a part of the clan and worked under a single low-level soldier of the clan. If they were caught, then it meant that they were sloppy. If they were sloppy, then he had no use for them. If they were caught, any support from the clan would be taken and the soldier would be marked for death. Hokage-sama, I believe that these drug dealers are involved in something other than just selling drugs on the streets, one of the head investigators told him. They are way too organized to be a normal gang, and we still don't know how they're getting it in town. The only way we find out is after it's been sold on the streets. Sarutobi nodded. I see, this is troubling indeed. I think this is the work of a Yakuza clan, Hokage-sama. No gang has ever been able to keep in the dark for so long without being caught long before now. The man stated, I would like to request that an ANBU infiltrate this and work undercover. One of your ANBU would have a way better chance than one of us. They seem to smell our training. A beep from the intercom on his desk stopped them. Hokage-sama? Your afternoon appointment is here. Sarutobi nodded to himself and pressed the button. Yes, I'll be right with him. He spoke before releasing the button. I'll have one of my ANBU assigned to look into this. Now please excuse me. I have an important meeting. The investigator nodded and bowed. Yes, Hokage-sama, thank you. A minute passed and there was a knock at the door. Come on in, Naruto-kun. The blonde walked in and shut the door. Good afternoon, old man, he said with a grin. The Hokage sighed and gave a small smile while shaking his head. Hello to you too, Naruto-kun. How may I help you? Yes, right to business, the blonde spoke while walking over and sitting down on the chair across from the Hokage. I wish to forego the usual channels and personally put in a request for some work to be done by your ninja. Sarutobi gave him a look. I guess I could help you out, Naruto-kun. Usually my aides would do these things for me, but I can do this whenever I feel like it. He told him while scratching his beard. What kind of work needs to be done? Well, I need one shipment of furniture brought from a town on the border of fire, and another brought from a town on the border of grass and fire. It's simple really, but I need them here and a group of ninja are faster. Besides, there's always the off chance of thieves trying to steal things. The Hokage nodded. Given the lack of real danger, they could be classified as D rank, he mused while pulling out blank mission scrolls from his desk. Yes, well, I also need to pick up a large shipment of live fish from Wave as well as a bunch of extremely fragile equipment, and special-made glass. It'll take around 4 ox-drawn carts to transport, and I'll pay extra to make sure that none of it is missing, broken, or in the case of my fish dead. Sarutobi was writing down the conditions and other information down just as he was saying them, years of suffering through paperwork giving him the necessary skill. And lastly, I need a team to retrieve a couple crates from Wave when they arrive. The Hokage looked at him. And what might these crates contain? Naruto chuckled. Officially, just a bunch of tablecloths and other things for my restaurant. Sarutobi raised an eyebrow. And unofficially? He asked, almost afraid to hear it. Naruto looked around and leaned forward. It's tea leaves. The Hokage's sweat dropped. He didn't know why he expected to hear that it was something like a crate of gold or some ancient priceless piece of history. Tea? He questioned in an unbelieving tone. Naruto nodded. Yes, but not just any kind of leaf. It's the kind we use to brew our special tea. While the leaf itself is bought by a lot of clans, most notably your very own Hyuga clan, they don't know what the secret ingredients are to make it as good as we do. That is why I will personally be going along to oversee this as well as the trip to pick up the fish. I see, the Hokage nodded. Will both of these be at the same time? Naruto shook his head. No, it'll be at least a week apart. The tea isn't scheduled to arrive until the end of next week. Once again the intercom beeped. Hokage-sama, the council elders are here to see you, they say it's urgent. Naruto stood up. Well, I'll be on my way. Feel free to stop by for a meal once my place is up and running. He then walked towards the door, but stopped. Oh, and Hokage-sama? He said, his tone cold as ice. If your A and B you continue to shadow me around, you will find that I have friends in high places that could make your time in office very difficult. I do not appreciate being spied on. Sarutobi blanched and nodded. Of course, Naruto-kun, he said with a nervous laugh. It really wasn't to spy on him, but he had them follow him around in case the villagers tried anything. Naruto nodded. Good, now have a wonderful day, old man. As he walked out of the tower and onto the street, Naruto stopped by a small stand selling dango and ordered himself one. If it isn't Ruto-chan. Naruto stopped what he was doing and chuckled. I recognize that laid-back tone anywhere, he said while paying the vendor, never turning to look at the man behind him. Actually, I'm glad you're here. Saves me the trouble of finding you myself. Goro walked up and bought himself a stick, always ready to help make your life easier. Ruto-chan, he said dramatically while giving a small bow. Naruto shook his head. Come on, he muttered while motioning for him to follow. Let's walk. Goro told the man to keep the change and walked up next to the blonde. I see Nishiki is missing, he stated with a chuckle. I told the others that you'd lose him, and sending him would be a waste of time. Naruto shrugged and swallowed one of the sweet dumplings on the stick. I really don't care. He knows where the line is and the punishment to crossing them too many times. He had a little trouble at first, but I taught him just who the head of the clan is. Nishiki's always been a little bitch, Goro stated, using the stick to pick his teeth after eating them all in one go. He's lucky one of the others saw something in him, because I would have never let him into my family. Lay off him, Goro. While I agree that he is a bit of a bitch, and has the sense of humor of a shoe, he means well enough. He only wants to do a good job. Goro mumbled something. He's still a though. Ain't that the truth? They walked a ways and entered one of the many parks, passing by children playing while their mothers sat on benches and chatted among themselves. So what's up, Ruto-chan? Goro questioned after a minute. Why choose Konoha for the meeting? As you should remember, me and Konoha have a history. Goro snorted. Yeah, hundreds of people trying to murder you on your birthday. I'd call that history. Naruto ignored his outburst. Yes, well, as such, besides opening my new restaurants, there is a festival coming up. A lot of you are already in a crime database, so instead of meeting in some desolate cave, we will use the influx of travelers to meet here, under the guise of wanting to enjoy the festival. Security will be strained more than usual, Goro muttered to himself. Naruto nodded. Yes, and any police and ninja will most likely be too busy keeping watch over the streets than trying to tail one of the heads. Don't meant that there isn't a possibility. The blonde nodded at Goro's statement. Yes, and that is why you will all have an escort. You mean those missing nins? Naruto shrugged. Can't be a missing nin if they think you're dead. Besides, they're loyal and were trained sensor nins, so they would be able to sense if they were being followed. And speaking of being followed, I heard you brought some of your family with you. Usually they're following you around like a pack of lost pups. Goro smirked and chuckled. Well, about that, I took a walk through your old hood and found an old man and his daughter being pressed for protection money from some street rats. So you took care of them and had your guys start cleaning up the place after putting them under your protection. Naruto cut him off. This isn't the Konoha I loved when I was little, or perhaps it's always been this way and I was just too blind to see it for what it was. The other man snorted. I've been here for a day and so far I've seen nothing but stuck-up clansmen, street trash, and drunks. But then again, I've only seen a little bit of the village. But my first impression is that this is a place full of greed and lies. Naruto gave a crooked grin. I have a feeling that we'll fit in perfectly here. Undercover Anbu Yugao cautiously made her way through Shikuba town, which literally meant in town, and for good reason. It was a pleasure district located a few miles from Konoha and featured many hotels, inns, restaurants, bars, and brothels. She was on her way to Fun Avenue, one of the nastiest streets in the town. Her assignment was to get in with the local gang there and try to find out whatever she could. The intelligence department had already set her up with a fake ID and a false background, which included a few fake drug charges and a few assaults on the police, just in case they were to somehow have the connections to do a check on her. It had taken a while to set everything up. She had just gotten the assignment a week ago from the Hokage and spent that whole time preparing. The leader was a man by the name of Shinja, an orphan from the Mist Village whose parents were killed during the civil war by an unknown group who, ironically enough, had no connections to the war at all. Information on him was easy to get once you started looking in the right places. He was a party animal, loved fast cash, and easy women. The easiest way would be to get him in the sack and search the place after he went to sleep. But she refused to degrade herself even though she had been trained to do so. It wasn't a problem and it would take longer to do, but she had a perfect plan. Sources told her that the gang was bringing in a huge shipment, and would be looking to hire some outside muscle to protect the exchange. It was also invitation only, but just the night before she had tracked down a person with such an invitation, and relieved him of it. She also had a few of her ANBU friends set up a mock ambush where they would slaughter a few of the guards before being defeated by her, saving the shipment, and giving her a real good reputation with the gang. The shipment was arriving today and everything was set. Now all she had to do was arrive and wait for the ambush. Naruto sat in the back of the ox-drawn cart, and looked at the ninjas escorting him and his shipment of fish and equipment back to the village. Given the small caravan he had traveling to Konoha, the old man saw fit to give him 2 teams of ninja to escort him, all of which were people from his ex-class back in the academy. Their reaction to his return was rather entertaining. Flashback. Naruto leaned against the wall at the village gate dressed in one of his usual suits, this time a light gray, nearly white suit with a dark red shirt underneath. He had told the Hokage to send the ninjas to the front gate, while he had the carts prepared, seeing as they had a nice shipping company here in the village for things that a male ninja wouldn't be able to carry. Something that Wave had yet to get, seeing as their main thing was shipping over the water. The 4 handlers harnessed and soothed the powerful beasts that were to haul the 4 carts back and forth from Wave, knowing that an angry ox could ruin the cart, and possibly the deal that the blonde had set up with their boss, offering to pay extra should they be quick about things. Where is this guy? A voice wandered off to the side. Naruto looked over and saw the loud and boisterous mutt known as Kiba along with his dog Akamaru. He still hadn't changed a bit. I hope and nothing happened to him. From behind his sunglasses, Naruto saw Hinata standing next to an older woman in a white dress with exotic red eyes. Then 5 more walked out of the gates. The first was Shino, who silently walked over to his team and stood without saying a word. Next was another older man that Naruto recognized as the old man Sunasuma, who, like his father, was smoking, just not out of a pipe. Behind him walked 3 others from the academy, the ever-lazy Shikamaru, the bossy blonde Ino, and chubby Choji. He had never had a real problem with this bunch, just that Ino was loud and Kiba was too prideful about things. Man, what a drag, Shikamaru muttered while looking up at the clouds. Ino looked around. Hey, weren't we meeting the guy here? Just great, it's not even been an hour and things are already messing up. For a ninja you're awfully impatient, Naruto spoke without moving, drawing their attention to him. You the client? Asuma questioned, not recognizing him just yet. Naruto chuckled. Why Asuma, I'm hurt that your father didn't tell you about me, he said while pushing himself off the wall and walking forward, showing them his face and making their eyes widen in recognition. And no way. Ino gasped, pointing at him. Naruto? Kiba asked, is that really you? Naruto, like Goro did, gave a dramatic bow with a smirk on his face. The flesh. Dude, what are you doing here? I haven't seen you in years. Naruto shrugged at Kiba. Business. With my current position I really don't have to do anything and could live in the lap of luxury, waited on hand and foot day and night. But unlike Shikamaru, I'm way too active for such an inactive lifestyle. I kinda got that impression, Asuma stated. I saw that Dad had a few mission scrolls paid for by the same person, but I would have never expected that person to be you, Naruto-kun. Wow, you've really grown up. Whoa, wait a minute, Ino called. You mean to tell me that you, Naruto Uzumaki, the dead last in class, is rich enough to pay for multiple missions? Ino! Asuma scolded. No, it's okay Asuma, Naruto spoke, stopping the man. It's completely understandable for her to be skeptical. After all, the last time I've stepped foot in this village I was a poor little orphan who couldn't afford a decent meal, let alone a mission. So you're loaded? Ino! Naruto chuckled. Oh, extremely so, he boasted. You are looking at Lord Chairman. The blonde stopped short and sighed, making the others blink in confusion as another man came running up, huffing for breath. Asuma and Kurenai looked at each other and mouthed, Lord Chairman? Hello Nishiki, Naruto greeted dryly. How nice of you to join us. I was just about to send for you. Nishiki gave a small glare. Yeah right, I knew you told me to come to the wrong gate. You were just trying to get rid of me, he growled. Naruto dropped the act and shrugged. Sure was. But you're just like an STD, easy to find, hard to get rid of, he said, making Nishiki gape. Everyone, I'd like to introduce my human shield, my assistant / babysitter, Nishiki. Just ignore him, he's basically a living calculator or dictionary. Nishiki looked down and grumbled. Anyway, as I was saying, you're looking at the founder and chairman of the Black Rose Company. Choji choked on his chips, and oh way. Everyone looked at him. Kiba blinked. What's the Black Rose Company? Choji gaped at him. It's only the greatest company in the world. My clan's been trying to buy into it ever since it was founded. Naruto nodded. Yes, and every time your clan council keeps demanding company information, something that only few people such as myself are allowed to know, such as the information on how to make some of our high-class Black Rose delicacies, or more recently, how to brew our legendary Black Rose sake. We only give bottles of that to people who earn our favor, like the Fire Lord who asked my company to cater to his granddaughter's birthday. Naruto then took a thinking pose. Then again, we really should tell them that no amount of money will bribe us into selling that. We don't even sell the bottles of sake, and Kami knows that people have tried to pay vast amounts of money for one. Choji pointed a finger at him with wide eyes and an open mouth. Shikamaru shook his hair and muttered a troublesome under his breath. What are you doing back, Naruto? I thought you disliked Konoha. Naruto waved it off. All that messed in the past. I've decided to be the bigger person and turn the other cheek. And the chairman isn't at liberty to discuss company. Nishiki started in a businesslike tone, only for Naruto to slap him in the back of the head with a smile. Nishiki, shut up. Over half the village already know that the Black Rose is branching out, he said evenly before looking at the ninjas. As for your question, I am opening 2 new places here. The first being a tea house and the other being a sea-themed place. I have no doubt that they're going to be the next big thing around here. They then walked over to the carts and sat on the end. As a matter of fact, this is the reason for this little mission. You will be escorting me and my living calculator here to Wave to pick up some very important things, and upon completion, you will all be rewarded with a free meal cooked personally by yours truly. You cook? Kiba questioned with a snicker. Nishiki made himself known once more. Actually, the whole corporation is based around his very own recipes, he said before looking down again. Sorry? Yes, Kiba. Naruto started before slowly drawing one of his razor-sharp cleavers from underneath his coat, making the mud gulp. And I'm very fond of using my skills for more than just cooking. So don't think that just because you continued along the path of becoming a ninja that you have become the proverbial alpha. Because unlike you, my friend, while you were doing the chores that Konoha passes on as missions, I was out in the real world, where you aren't pampered and given another chance if you mess up. The seriousness of the situation faded instantly. But we're wasting daylight here just standing here. So let's get this show on the road and feel free to ride on one of the carts. I doubt that you'll be given the chance to ride on the way back. Flashback end. So far the trip was uneventful. Shikamaru laid in the back of one cart watching the clouds with Choji eating from another bag of chips. They were ignoring their sensei and the driver who sat up on the front, both smoking like a snow country train. Ino sat on another with a compact mirror in her hand, preening herself before taking out a brush and brushing her hair, not noticing Kurenai, who saw her as one of the fangirls that gave others like her a bad name. On the front cart, Nishiki sat next to Shino, who surprisingly was sharing an intellectual conversation, while Kiba scratched his head in confusion, not really understanding half of the big word being used while looking at the cart behind him, where Hinata was sitting next to Naruto with their feet dangling over the edge of the cart. When they all started to load up onto the carts, Naruto had sent Nishiki to another cart and grabbed Hinata's wrist as she passed by, asking her to sit with him so that they could talk. Hinata was extremely shy and nervous as she sat next to her old crush, which was slowly resurfacing as she sat beside him. He knew about her feelings, only a fool wouldn't, but then again, he never really had any real contact with girls before leaving the village. It was only after leaving Konoha that he found out that girls found him cute because of his whiskers, which led to one thing and then another, which ultimately got him in a whorehouse where he was assaulted by an older woman who cuddled and groped him until he succumbed to her advances. Had she not poured a bottle of sake down his throat, he would have never done what he did. Poor woman would never be able to enjoy her profession after the hours of hot and raunchy sex they had. So Hinata-chan, Naruto started softly with a charming smile. How have you been? It's been years since I've seen you. I've been well, and Naruto-kun, Hinata nearly whispered, looking at the ground with a blush. Naruto patted her back. That's good to know. I've been meaning to see everyone since I returned, but things keep getting in the way. Hinata swallowed hard. And Naruto-kun, I have something that I wanted to tell you, she said nervously while trying to spit it out and confess her feelings. The blonde looked at her and cocked her head to the side. What's wrong, Hinata-chan? The girl opened her mouth, but the words wouldn't come out. She tried to force herself to say the words that she had dreamed of saying for years, but now that the chance come up, she just couldn't. She looked down with a sigh. It's nothing. In a brothel, a young man in his late 20s sat back on a couch with two slightly older girls at his side. His black hair was styled in a faux mohawk, and he wore a black tank top showing off his less than impressive arms and a small dragon tattoo around his shoulder. Shinji-sama, you should have seen it, one of the guys said. That girl was fucking crazy. She saved the whole shipment after we were ambushed by some group. We even managed to keep both the money and the stuff thanks to her. Who is this bitch? Shinji questioned his underling. The goon pulled out a file and handed it to his leader. She's a merc. Had multiple run-ins with the law, drug charges. This crazy bitch has even fought and nearly killed an officer before. Interesting, Shinji spoke while sitting up. We need more people like that. People who aren't afraid of fighting pigs. I want to meet her. Someone like this deserves to work under me. Yugao received the message to meet the gang at the brothel the next day around 10 at night, saying that someone wanted to meet her. She arrived early and walked in, ignoring the whores and perverts. The purple-haired Yusi made her way towards the back where she was told to go. But she didn't get far as two men in black suits stepped in front of her. I was told to meet Shinji here, he told them, expecting them to move. The first, who wore black sunglasses over his eyes, shook his head slowly. Shinji has no say right now. He is in a meeting with Mr. Taiga right now. Yugao blinked and racked her brain, trying to remember the name. Who? Let's go, growled a voice to the side. Yugao turned and had to look up to see the tall man's face. He was probably the most physically imposing man she had ever seen. Standing a good foot and a half over her and covered in muscle, the man whom she suspected was Taiga looked like one of those professional fighters on TV. Yes, Mr. Taiga. The two spoke with a bow. Taiga gave Yugao a look and walked away, leaving the brothel and disappearing. She walked towards the back and found the man she was looking for sitting on a couch, leaning on his elbows with his face in his hands. As she neared, he looked up and she saw the forming bruise appearing around his eye and the evidence of his lips starting to swell. So you're the one my boys were telling me about, Shinji said, trying and failing to look tough. The fact that some of his words were slurred due to the swelling ruined the attempt. I heard about how you handled yourself and have a job for you. Pays a lot more than those pissy guard jobs. A rival dealer has been selling product on our streets and have been stealing our customer, selling his shit at half our prices. But the thing is, we got our hands on some of it and found out that he was cutting it with something else, something that will kill the user if used enough. I don't want his ass around threatening our customers or our business. Kill him and destroy any of his product you can. I don't want to see you face around here until you're done. The guy at the door will give you more detail. Yugao nodded and turned away. Goddamn Taiga, she heard the man curse before hissing. Looking behind her, she saw Shinji poking at his lip and snorted, serve the prick right. With the attitude he had, she wouldn't be surprised if he normally got punched in the mouth. But it wasn't just that, it seemed that the reports were right. They were a smaller part of something bigger. Her orders were to infiltrate and find out anything she could about them, including any partners they had or bosses. Lord Hokage also asked her to gather any and all details she could on the individual members of the crew. It wasn't an order but a request. So far she had found out the simple things, like their main hangout was the fun brothel, the main whorehouse on the street. She would also have to send a message to the Hokage telling him that the investigator had been correct, that they were a part of some larger group. She already knew that her assignment was about to get more difficult. Once the Hokage got her report, he would send her updated orders telling her to get closer, to get in deeper with the crew and try to reach Shinji's boss. Sure, she would be a raise in pay for the added danger, but undercover work was messy. It not only fucked with your moral values at times, but there was also the possibility of being somewhat brainwashed. There had been quite a few others who got in so deep that they actually started thinking like the enemy, and even betrayed their former comrades. The ANBU tried to teach you ways to keep such things from happening. The most basic was keeping pictures of your loved ones to remind you of who's waiting back home. But it wasn't completely reliable. UCs were often called in for mental evaluations, especially after long deep cover assignments. Hey, you the chick Shinji-sama sent? Looking at the thug by the door, she nodded. Okay, cool. Listen, down the street you'll find an alley between the Rising Sun Inn and a bar called Jinyo's. The dealer's down that alley and behind the bar. He told her before pulling something out of his pocket that was covered in a cloth. When you find him, use this and leave it in. The item was forced into her hand by the thug before he backed away. Return when you're finished. If Shinji-sama has no more work for you, I can also pay you for your work. It's not as big or high profile, but the money's good. I might not be like Shinji-sama, but I have connections of my own. If you help me, I can help you. Time skip, 2 days. The town of Wave, proof that even under the oppression of a tyrant you can find hope, Naruto said with a nod as the small caravan of carts stopped at the end of the bridge. Looking down the town's main street where people were out and about, buying and selling whatever was needed or wanted, the 8 ninja looked around at the busy street. I heard about this place, Asuma said. Didn't Kakashi's team help rebuild the people here? Naruto snorted. He probably wrote it in his report, but the truth is, all he did was protect the client, he said with a distasteful tone, making the senseis look at him in confusion. What? Don't you find it strange that Wave has yet to ally itself with your village or even open any major trade agreements? In truth, Konoha left Wave to die out here. The council even threatened them, forcing them into debt. They had already paid all they could for the mission and were even worse off than before. The ninja were appalled. They did what? Naruto hummed. I see that they tried to keep that quiet. But yes, the civilian council went behind the Hokage's back and threatened the town, demanding twice the amount that should have been paid and then demanding that the bridge be named after the village or that Uchiha. They looked at the brass sign on the bridge and saw that it was not named after either the Uchiha or Konoha. It was named the Bridge of Hope. As you can see, it didn't happen. The old man received a nice letter explaining the circumstances and then the threats made by the council. To make it up to them, he voided their debt and punished the ones who kept pushing for it, namely some old man named Danzo and some whore with pink hair, never did get her name. The drivers got the oxes to continue the trip, down towards the docks. I can only imagine the looks on their faces when they found out that Wave refused to ever allow trade with them, especially with the dock being a quick way to travel as well as being a major importer of fish. Shino nodded. That would explain the sudden increase in the price of fish. Even with Gato running things, he had control over import and export. He wasn't stupid and knew that keeping it going would make him more money. The blonde stated just as they arrived at the correct location. Mr. Uzumaki, yelled one of the dock workers, we've been expecting you. We're ready to offload your things whenever you're ready. All you need to do is sign for them, he called while patting a pile of crates. Naruto jumped off the cart and stretched before walking over, followed by his faithful dog Nishiki and the ninja. The foreman pulled a small stack of papers off the top of the crate and pulled a pen from his pocket. Okay, before you sign, let me walk you through here to make sure you have everything you wanted. Here we have a crate of industrial aquarium supplies, he said while pointing and tapping the crate with the pen. This is the industrial shatterproof glass rated to withstand even chakra-powered strikes, as long as it's not constantly attacked. Naruto signed for them and the foreman motioned for the workers to start loading them up. All the crates would take up at least the first cart. Okay sir, please follow me to the next area. Due to the nature of these shipments, we had to separate them so that they could be cared for. They walked over to a warehouse and found a row of large wooden crates with the tops removed. Inside was multiple thick plastic boxes filled with water. The group walked over and looked into the closest, and the ninja gasped. They're beautiful, Ino, Hinata, and Kurenai said while looking at the occupants of the container. Here we have over 100 exotic centrocentropi. Naruto shook his head. Centropige loriculus, better known as flame angelfish. They were a bright reddish-orange with black stripes along its side and electric blue marks on the tail fin. Like the girls had said, they were extremely beautiful. The next got similar reactions and Naruto saved the man from sounding like an idiot by trying to say the name of the fish. Zebrasoma flavescens, or yellow tang, he muttered loudly while looking at the large school of small yellow fish. The next few had the guys impressed. Hinata, who had taken to standing next to Naruto, tugged on his sleeve and stuttered, and Naruto-kun, why you bought S-sharks? He nodded. Blacktip reef shark to be exact, he told her while sticking his hand into the water and rubbing it, making the others, especially Nishiki, pale at the thought of him being bitten. It does well in captivity, and those large aquariums often keep them, so why not buy a whole family to keep as pets? Suddenly the shark thrashed slightly, making a big splash and wetting Kurenai, Kiba, Asuma, and Nishiki. Naruto laughed and patted the shark while the others got in a few cheap laughs. I knew I'd love having a pet shark. Time skip. One day, the paths were relatively silent as the convoy trekked through the forest, the only real sounds being that of a far-off animal, or the rare bump on the road that caused the wheel to dip. The ninja split up and each took a cart to protect. Kurenai took a position sitting on a crate in the front cart, while Asuma once again sat with his new smoking pal in the last cart. They had expected to walk the rest of the way home but had been assured that the crates were very well made and would be fine to sit on. Hinata once again got on the same one with Naruto along with Choji, who took to asking him about ways to improve cooking. Nothing major but mainly asking some advice. The blonde didn't mind, mainly because he could share any information he wanted, but what he was being asked was usually in the menu, telling the customer how certain things were cooked or prepared mainly to justify the 17,000 yen check they received. Why is it so expensive? Choji questioned while ignoring the bag of chips in his hand, something he hardly ever did. Well, you have to look at it the way we do, Naruto said in a tone that would have made Irika proud. Wagyu cattle provide some of the highest quality meat, and we try not to use chemically altered shirt. He spat at the words chemically altered. Sure, using the cattle that only take a fraction of the time to raise would lower the price, but what are you going to do when you see kids around 10 years old looking like they have kids of their own? Choji blinked. I never really thought of that. But even then an 8-ounce cut costs 13,200 yen. We sometimes dry age it for days. That alone is expensive and challenging, especially when you push the normal aging period. How long do you age them? Depending on what the person wants, it could be anywhere between 7 to 21 days. But the Fire Lord requested the best steak we could make, so we pushed it 45 days. I half expected it to turn out bad, but he said it was the best steak he ever tasted. Hinata sat and listened to Naruto talk with Choji. It wasn't as nice as being alone with him, but she decided that it was better than not being able to say anything out of embarrassment. So Hinata-chan, Naruto asked suddenly, making Hinata jump slightly, what's your favorite dish? Had she been brave enough, she would have said anything you cook, Naruto-kun, as long as we shared it. But alas, she had as much bravery and confidence as a mouse inside a house full of cats. See cinnamon buns? Naruto nodded with a small smirk. Oh, someone's got a sweet tooth. But you're in luck, we have something that you'd enjoy too, cinnamon pull-aparts. Imagine a huge cinnamon bun as large as a cake that you can pull apart with your hands. Those that were listening were drooling at the sound of that, and the mental images that came with it. I'll admit that it wasn't one of my own creations. Only a grandmother could think of something so sweet that it'll spoil you just as much as it'll rot your teeth. The blonde laughed while closing his eyes. Oela Maiha, or as we used to call her, Old Granny Sweet Tooth, almost had a heart attack when I gave her cut of the profits when I bought out her little sweets shop. Stabbed me with a cookie cutter too after I called her that too. Naruto looked down and remembered back to when he had stitches in the shape of a gingerbread man on his back along with half of said gingerbread man's family around it. The whole group got a cheap snicker out of that, and soon fell into a small silence. Why do you carry around a butcher's knife? The chubby boy asked after a while. Naruto shrugged. Better than carrying around a cast iron skillet, he said loud enough for everyone to hear, making everyone who knew Shikamaru mother snicker, as she was well known for carrying around said item in a scroll and hitting anyone who pissed her off. Shikamaru groaned and covered his face with his arm. Sarutobi looked over Yugao's report with a small sigh. He had hoped that the gang was just a group of drug dealers, but Yugao suspected otherwise. Not only that, but they were willing to murder other dealers, which made them a real problem. But at the same time, they seemed to target the dealer because he was potentially harming the users, or that what it looked like. As much as he hated to do it, he would have to have her go deeper and find out who was really in charge, which meant that they would have to leave the gang alone for a while, because it would look suspicious if they got busted just as soon as someone new started working with them. These people were smart, keeping hidden for so long without the leaf finding out, meaning that the bosses would figure that Yugao was a mole. Grabbing a blank scroll to send back to her, the elderly Hokage wrote it all in code, which, when read by an untrained person, would look like any number of things, ranging from bills, letters from loved ones, or even love notes, depending on where the UC was or how he felt. Quickly writing the orders in the form or a love letter, which he found amusing, he looked at the messenger hawk standing on a stack of paperwork and handed the small item over, allowing it to grab it with its talons and fly off through the open window. Naruto continued to talk to Choji every now and then about cooking, giving him advice and whatnot to pass the time after they had packed up camp for the day and set out towards Konoha. Somehow, Choji had found a small notebook and was taking notes on nearly everything the blonde said, like an over-devoted student, especially after the previous night. They had literally gotten a taste of why Naruto's business was so popular, after camp was set up not too far from a stream. Kiba made a remark to Naruto about his cooking skills not being as good as he said. It was only after Naruto smirked and reached under his coattail that the dog boy had remembered that the blonde possessed a large cleaver and was able to use it. But to his and everyone else's relief, Naruto just untucked his shirt tail and said that he'd just have to prove it by cooking some fish from the stream. They had never seen Choji move so fast in his life. He had jumped to his feet and barked out that he would catch the fish and shot off towards the water, not even taking his sandals off before diving into the water and surfacing a minute later with a trout clenched in his teeth. Despite the humorousness of that, no one laughed from the shock until Naruto said, "I didn't know we had bears around here," pointing out that Choji had actually outdone any bear at catching a trout. Asuma even made a mental note that he could use this to bribe Choji into training even harder. The others pitched in, some helping catch fish, gather firewood, or pick random leaves that Naruto pointed out to them. Naruto cleaned and gutted the fish they caught like a master, using a cleaver to chop, cut, and scrape in ways that looked like he was about to chop a finger off. He then used the seemingly random things they picked, and used them on the meat before sticking them on small pikes over the fire. They waited for a good few minutes before the smell reached them. Kiba had wanted to eat then, but Naruto hit the back of his hand with the blunt end of his cleaver, leaving a bruise and making the mutt snatch his hand back in pain. So they were forced to wait longer, tortured by the smell and unable to do anything about it. So when Naruto deemed the fish ready to eat, he gave everyone a fish, even the 4 guys who were driving the oxes. Akamaru was in heaven. Not only did he get his own fish, but once the others finished, they gave him to Bones, which also tasted great. Kiba, as much as he hated to admit, bowed his head and gave a strangled apology, only to yelp when Akamaru bit him and growled. Calling him a traitor, Kiba gave a better one and admitted that he had never liked fish up until now. That night, Naruto laid on top of one of the crates in the cart and slept, turning down the offer to share a tent with one of the guys in favor of laying out under the stars and moon, the caravan jerking to a halt abruptly on the forest road. Shit! Naruto yelped, falling back and hitting his head on the crate. Sitting up and rubbing his head, he hissed angrily, what the fuck's the problem? Standing in the middle of the road was a dirty-looking group of men and even a few women, each holding a weapon of some sort and grinning at them. Thanks for the stuff, we'll be taking all this off you hands. Now get off the wagons and hand over everything. A woman spoke from the middle. Naruto looked at the ninja. Time to earn your pay, guys, he spoke while turning and sitting down to watch. Show me how well Konoha trains the ninja. The following battle was sad and pathetic to watch. The thieves who had thought that the small caravan would be an easy score had never expected over half of them to be trained ninja. So they fell like flies to a fly swatter, the 6 genin and 2 jounin making quick work of them and them up. Asuma summoned a monkey, seeing as his father was the keeper of the scroll and had allowed him to sign with the boss summons acceptance, to send a message to the local police or ANBU if they were close to the village to have these bandits picked up and imprisoned. The jounin congratulated their genin for handling themselves, only for Naruto to clear his throat loudly. Not to rain on your parade or anything, but you missed one. Looking to where he pointed, they saw the bandit leader trying to tiptoe away. Kurenai cast a quick genjutsu, making the woman freeze in place before fainting. Assassinating that dealer for the gang had fast-tracked her to being somewhat of Shinja's go-to girl. As it turned out, most of them were afraid to do some wet work for fear of being arrested, and seeing as she wasn't, Shinja had her hunt down another rival for him after that. But Shinja didn't have any other jobs for her after that, and despite the respect she gained with them, the others didn't truly see her as one of them. She knew that if she really wanted to get the information she needed, she would have to earn their respect. It was basically the same back home. Academy students weren't respected at all by most of the higher-ranked ninja. But when you graduated, you earned a small bit of respect. Then you did missions for your home, and when you did well, you earned even more respect, and after you get enough experience you had the chance to once again rise to the next rank. Each rank you were allowed to know more than before. Academy students were only allowed to know the basics. Genin were taught lower rank things and were never trusted with any village secrets. But as you matured and proved to everyone that you were trustworthy, you got access to more. She would have to earn more respect, meaning that she would have to do some more jobs for the gang. But lucky for her, she knew that the guy from before would have worked for her. Looking up in the sky, she saw a hawk fly toward her room at the inn and made her way there, already knowing that it was her new orders from the Hokage. The village gates came into view over the horizon a few hours after noon, and after being allowed through the gate, the ninjas got off the carts. Naruto slid around to look at them with a lazy smirk. Well, guys and girls, it's been a blast. Tell the old man that I'll see him later. Oh, and if you ever need some side work, come and find me. I'll be needing some help finishing up my place later on. Nishiki slid off the side and stretched his legs. Sir, don't forget, you have a business meeting this evening, he reminded while popping his back. The blonde nodded. Yes, I almost forgot, he muttered while rubbing his temples before looking back up at the group. Well, I'll be seeing you all later. I need to go to my hotel and shower. Nishiki, show these men where to take this and where to store them. Tazuna already knows what I want done. I'll stop by later tonight to see how things are going. See you later, man, Kiba said with Akamaru barking, his way of saying the same thing as Kiba. The others gave their goodbyes, including Hinata, who gave a small wave before leaving to give their reports then get paid. The walk back to his hotel was peaceful. The lunch rush had ended hours ago and most were already back at work, but there were a few stragglers, a mother with her child, an elderly couple walking together in the sun, and even a young man who made eyes at him. Quickly walking past said man before he could make a move, Naruto reached the hotel lobby and got on the elevator before pressing the button. Waiting for the elevator to reach the top, Naruto waited until it dinged and started to get off, only to be grabbed and pulled off as the doors opened. A pair of lips crashed into his hungrily as 2 hands gripped the back of his head, and 2 legs wrapped around his waist. The forced kiss lasted a few seconds until the girl, if the 2 soft pillows against his chest was anything to go by, pulled back with a sly, lustful grin. Naruto-sama, I missed you so much, where have you been? Naruto rubbed her rear. How on earth did you get up here? Only certain people are allowed up here, he questioned while she placed little kisses on his cheek and neck. The redhead blushed. Well, I sorta maybe took the key to get up here from that guy that came to visit you, she told him while pulling out a hotel key from between her while holding onto his shoulders with the other arm. Naruto thought back to when he saw her bump past Nishiki and chuckled. I see, clever little minx, he muttered while walking her to his door and using her key to open it, absently reminding himself to check his wallet and other things after she left. He carried her in and locked the door behind before throwing the key aside. I don't have long to fuck around, got a meeting soon and need to take a shower, you hear me, Sasiko? She nodded and gave him another lusty look. Then let's fuck around in the shower. After getting dressed and escorting Sasiko out, while making sure he had both keys in his possession, Naruto walked towards his next destination, the unused sector of the village not too far from Training Ground 44, which was surrounded by mostly unused forests owned by the village that no one had the balls to buy because it was so close to the scary forest pussies. He strolled down the paths, ignoring the few ninja that stared at him in wonder, trying to figure out why a civilian, a well-dressed one at that, was walking towards the forests. It wasn't illegal for a civilian to be there, but most had avoided them due to the fact that a ninja may hit them by accident. Arriving at his destination, he found a group of older men and a woman dressed in kimono along with Goro, who hated to wear those unless he had to, talking to one another, while younger men in suits looked around for threats stood around the clearing. One of the younger men, who were still older than Naruto, saw him, and bowed, "Lord Chairman." This caught the others' attention and they followed suit, all but the older men, who only gave polite, but low nods. "Lord Chairman, it's nice to see you again," spoke the youngest of the older men. He wore a dark blue kimono. His black hair was combed to the right with a part in the side, but the most noticeable thing was the scar running from his left cheekbone across his nose and stopping just under his right eye. His name was Osamu Kashiwagi, the head of the Fuma family. Osamu wasn't the rightful head, but with Shintaro Fuma's death, they allowed him to become the temporary family head until an heir was found or it was decided to leave him as head. They didn't have to worry about him becoming power-hungry or anything. He had been Shintaro's best friend and would sooner kill himself than soil the man's name or position. Normally it would be easy to find a blood heir, but well, the Fuma was once one of the biggest families under the Kurabara clan banner, but a split formed over leadership and a good chunk had left the clan. It had hurt Shintaro to see his family split up, but he would rather see them walk away peacefully than be cut down and dumped into a hole. "Hello, Lord Naruto," the woman spoke in a proper and regal tone, dressed in a white kimono with a sword strapped under the obi. She was Yaya Dojima, the wife and widow of Sohei Dojima, who had also died, but unlike the Fuma, Sohei had a wife who was capable of taking control of the family before it fell apart, using her position as the one who could often tell Sohei what to do as well as fight with a sword just as well as any man. But unlike Fuma, who died in his sleep from stress and heart problems, Sohei was murdered by one of his own underlings, who thought that he would be able to take over and even force Yaya to marry him. What cemented Yaya's position as head of the clan was when she set up an ambush for the man, who unknowingly walked right into it, thinking that he would be getting into her pants. Unfortunately for him, instead of fucking the lovely older woman, she, along with a group of her supporters, fucked him up before dragging him to the blonde chairman's feet, asking for permission to kill him, seeing that Yaya didn't have the power to mark someone for death just yet. The next man just nodded in his blue kimono. He was Futoshi Shimano, the head of the Shimano family, which oversaw most operations overseas in Demon Country. He was a beast of a man and bald. He and Naruto were often sparring partners whenever they had the time, and usually came to a draw in a fair fight. But they both knew that while he had the physical power, Naruto had the mind and brains, often using his own attacks against him, like the time the blonde made him fracture his own hand when he ducked a punch which landed on a metal pole. "Hey Ruto-chan," Goro called, making everyone's sweat drop. Naruto huffed, "Way to destroy the mood, Goro." Yaya looked at Goro in disdain. While they were all good friends, she liked things to be proper and to follow tradition, especially when it came to giving the chairman, the person who gave them their position of power in the clan, his due respect. The blonde cleared his throat. "Anyway, the reason I asked you out to this kami-forsaken clearing of the forest is simple. Not only is it remote and avoided, but this is the location where I plan on building our new compound." Osamu rubbed his scarred nose. "Yes, I've read up on this place. It's pretty close to the Forest of Death, so most villagers will stay away." Futoshi snorted. "Why would you want another clan compound here at this place after what it did to you?" Naruto's normally calm face turned into an evil grin. "What better way to get back at them? Rubbing my success in their faces. I can't come out and kill them because it's bad of business. You can't force a dead body to pay or suffer." He laughed, making the younger Yakuza shiver. "I also wanted to tell you that the meeting will be on the final day of the festival, so enjoy yourselves and tell the others to expect a message that day and to be prepared to come to the location. I want it to be over by midnight to see the fireworks." Yaya understood the idea. "Oh, so while everyone is preparing, the finally we'll be discussing our business." Naruto nodded. "Yes. While they're looking up and waiting for the fireworks, we'll be right under their nose plotting now before this little get-together is over. Do you have any questions?" Futoshi cleared his throat. "Taiga sent word that Shinja hasn't been earning. He's a small-time soldier in my clan, sir. Normally something like that would be a problem, but seeing that Fire Country had left to be officially divided between the clan, it all fell under Naruto's complete jurisdiction, until he says otherwise." "Yes, Futoshi, I know about him, and now I'm ordering you to kill them." This shocked everyone. Naruto hardly ever ordered that a soldier of the clan, much less one of someone else's family, be marked and killed. "As sir?" Naruto glared at him. "I had an interesting run-in with a ninja in the Hokage town. She was carrying a stack of files and scrolls, one of which was on the gang." They felt their hearts drop. If it was one thing that Naruto enforced, was that the Kurabara clan must never be brought into the spotlight. No matter who it was, if they posed the threat of possibly breaking under the pressure, they were to die to protect the clan's secrecy. Futoshi nodded. "I understand, sir. But what about the girl?" Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Girl? What girl?" "Sir, Shinja has recruited a woman into his gang as his own little enforcer. Truth be told, she has a lot of potential and—" Naruto cut him off. "Do what you must, Futoshi. Allow her to live or not, it's your call. I trust you not to make another mistake or else." Futoshi bowed his head and felt a phantom pain hit his hand, right at the little nub where he had severed the tip of his own pinky for failing Naruto and the rest of the clan. "Of course, Lord Chairman." Naruto nodded. "All right, this meeting is over. Feel free to enjoy yourselves until the meeting. I shall be leaving for a few days soon to oversee another shipment. Also Yaya, I leave you in charge of getting our compound built. Mr. Tazuna is in town, so talk to him if you want, or contract someone else, just get it done. She nodded. Yes, Lord Naruto. The four nodded to him, and the other underlings bowed as he turned to leave. Oh, and one last thing. If you ever send someone like Nishiki to watch over me, I'll shove my foot up your asses. Then he stopped and looked at Yaya. And I promise you won't like it. The woman blushed a deep red as he mentioned that one-time fling they had where he had not only made passionate love to her but plowed her ass until she couldn't sit right at the next day's meeting. That of officially the day her grief ended and she was given her husband's place as head of the family, as well as the day she swore to stop drinking so much. Not that she regretted their one-night stand, just that she didn't want it to happen with just anyone. You see, she had just avenged her husband, killing the man who stabbed him to death, and began drinking with Naruto, who kept her company and had her stay at his place to make sure she didn't do anything too rash or got too lonely, letting her cry on his shoulder or just talk about Sohei. They all laughed nervously as he walked away and sighed as he disappeared. Goro looked at Yaya. What did he mean by you won't like it, he asked, making her blush. She then reared back and slapped him as hard as she could, sending the man to the ground before storming off with her bodyguards, following behind. The evening was young as Naruto made it to the site where his water-themed restaurant was being built. They had already got nearly everything but the finishing work complete, and some were already putting some dark sea blue carpet down while the others were assembling the large aquarium wall. The whole place was going to be 2 stories tall. The bottom floor would be open to anyone who booked a reservation, while the top was for high-paying VIPs. The first floor would make it look like you were surrounded by water while the fish swam around you. The second floor would make you feel like you were standing on the water looking down at the clear crystal water. One part of the tank was up and already had carpet put down. Just as soon as everything in the kitchen was set up, he could open for business. But he didn't plan on working there. He would send for one of the up and rising cooks working at another place that had been apprenticing under the head chef to become the head chef here. He would probably hang around for a few days to make sure he didn't fuck up, but soon guards from the clan would take over for security. Standing over in the finished corner, Naruto looked over a clipboard with Nishiki. So tell me, Nishiki, we already have the tables and chairs in the back and shipments of foodstuffs are expected to be in by tomorrow? Nishiki nodded. Yes, sir. For some reason they're ahead of schedule. They haven't even been able to get the freezer working yet, and some of the stuff needs to be put on ice just as soon as it gets here, he told the blonde while pointing to a few items listed on the paper. Naruto hummed, but the freezer is up and connected to the kitchen. Yes, sir. Okay, then take a few guys and buy a shitload of ice. When the stuff comes, and stack it in a corner and surround it in the bags of ice. I'll see about getting the guys to hurry up on wiring the freezer sooner. Naruto told him while turning the page. How are my fish? They're well taken care of. I sent someone to that pet store to buy some fish food for those small fish and got a few bigger ones to feed the sharks. That's good, Nishiki. I'm proud to see that you've forgiven the sharks for ruining your suit. The young man frowned. He hadn't gotten over it but had to let it go, seeing as he would be in trouble if the overgrown fish starved to death on his watch. Ah, yeah. One man dressed in a suit walked up and bowed, the small gold button on his lapel identifying him as one of Goro's men. Sir, Mr. Goro has sent me to help out around here. Naruto nodded. Yes, I know. I saw you a while ago watching the front door. The Majima family soldier straightened but kept his head lowered, a sign of great respect. Well, Lord Chairman, there's a young girl at the front. She says that you invited her. Naruto thought back. Young girl? He mumbled, trying to remember if he had invited anyone over. What did she look like? Blonde hair, light baby blue eyes, wears purple, and I think she's a ninja. The blonde boss realized who it was. Aino. Yes, send her on in. The Majima soldier jogged back to the door to allow the girl in. Sir, is it a good idea to let ninja work for us? I mean, letting them do even the smallest jobs could jeopardize us. Nishiki spoke nervously. Naruto waved him off. Oh, calm down, Nishiki. I'm not going to let them do the things you're thinking. I only need them to do quick deliveries or help finish some work, he said, pushing the clipboard into Nishiki's chest. Why, yes, sir. A second passed and Ino walked in, looking around until she caught sight of him and waved. Hey, Naruto-kun. He waved back while thinking back to how she treated him before, back in the academy. While she hadn't been a total horse/bitch for the Uchiha like Sakura, she was still a fangirl and as such had hit him a few times for calling Sasuke a fag. But other than that, she had never picked on him for anything like some did, so he wouldn't be mean to her, nor would he be overly nice, seeing as while she didn't try to stop them or be nice to him. Ino, what a surprise, he said as she walked up to him. I didn't expect to see you again today. Ino put on her best little smile. Well, you see, after a mission I like to go shopping and I found this cute little dress but didn't have enough money for it. Then I remembered that you said you'd pay us for doing little odd jobs and well. Naruto gave a small chuckle. I see. Well, Ino, seeing as you didn't just come in and ask for a handout, I think I can find you a job, he told her before turning to Nishiki. Nishiki, give me the letters. Nishiki put the clipboard under his arm and reached into the inside pocket of his coat before pulling out 4 letters and handing them to Naruto. Ino, I need each of these letters hand-delivered tonight before midnight, and seeing as you're a ninja I have confidence that you'll do it in an hour or 2. Anyway, I'll pay you the standard inter-village courier fee for each of these letters. These 2 you can give to the person at the front desk of the Baika Inn. They both have the person's name on it, so they'll take care of it. He gave her the first 2 letters before holding up the third. This goes to a man named Tazuna. He should be working at the construction site in Sector 5. Ino took the 3 letters and carefully slid them into her hip pouch. This last one goes to the Hokage. Wait for him to read it and tell me what he says. When you return I'll pay you. He gave her the final letter and made a shooing motion with his hand. Okay Naruto-kun, I see you soon, Ino spoke before turning and bolting out the door. Naruto watched her leave, or better yet her ass, as the purple skirt stretched over her rear as she ran. He almost wished that she had refused the job, asking for something quicker that paid more. Because when she did, his respect for her would have went down, and he would have given her only one alternative, and to do so would have made her a woman and a whore. Taiga sat in a small tea house in Shikubu town. Despite his large stature that was only outdone by the boss and head of his family, and his love of violence, he often enjoyed a cup of warm tea. Sometimes having his underlings sit down with him, and drink tea as well, and getting violent when they tried to back out. Taiga, he was brought from his thoughts as someone called his name. Looking to the person, he was surprised to see a young woman dressed in a bluish-black suit sitting beside him at another table, while reading a paper. And Miss Sien, what are you doing here? Miss Natsume Sien, aka Ms. Ity, was Futoshi's top enforcer, well known for being sadistic and cruel to anyone that made her angry. Even Futoshi tried to keep her happy and dreaded to be forced to fight her. Others in the family suspected that she was insane, hence the nickname Enzane, which sounded like insane. But don't let her hear you call her that. Only Lord Chairman wasn't the slightest bit afraid of her. Possibly because she was, how'd they put it, a fangirl for him, or was it batshit crazy for him? Oh well, as long as she was calm things were fine. Sien turned the page of the paper. Futoshi-san has new orders for you, straight from Lord Chairman himself, she said evenly before folding the paper and leaving it on the table before standing up and leaving. Taiga watched her leave and grabbed the paper. For him to send her just to deliver a message meant that it was important, or that she wanted to do it simply because Naruto was the one who made the order. Opening the paper and shaking it, a small envelope dropped out and onto the table. He opened it and read the letter, his face growing grimmer and grimmer as he did. An hour passed since Ino left to deliver the letters. The first 2 were simple, but finding Tazuna took some time. What really took a toll on her was waiting to get an audience with the Hokage. But he wasn't too busy, and after telling him that it was a letter from Naruto, he had his next meeting pushed back so that he could see her. Walking back into the building, she looked around for Naruto, but was unable to find him. Ms. Ino, called a voice from her side. Oh Mr. Nishiki, where's Naruto-kun? Nishiki scratched his head. Well, flashback. Naruto leafed through a stack of papers dealing with his business. He had to fill these out and file them with the old man before officially opening for business. It wasn't too much to do, just some things like the name, owner, insurance, things of that nature. Nishiki was helping with the more number-oriented stuff like taxes forms. Suddenly he froze, his pen hovering just above the paper. Sir? Nishiki, I feel a disturbance, like something evil is nearing. Naruto whispered while looking around. I told you not to eat those shellfish. Naruto smacked him in the back of the head. It's not that, dumbass. It feels like. His eyes widened. Nishiki, finish this up. I'm going to my hotel room to hide. Nishiki blinked as his boss slid the papers to him and bolted out the room, leaving a dust trail in his wake. Flashback end. Nishiki shook his head. Anyway, since he's not here, I've been left in charge, he told her while pulling a small folded stack of yen notes from his pocket. 12 yen, it should cover everything. Ino took it and smiled. Working for Naruto-kun is almost better than doing missions for the village. Nishiki shrugged. Fast and easy money, but always in short supply. Huh, we don't usually contract outside sources. We have people to do these sorts of things. You're lucky because we're already short-handed here at the moment, and soon more people working for us will show up, making the job pool dry up for people like yourself. Ah, Nishiki-san, the Majima soldier called from the front. We have a problem. Nishiki looked around Ino and excused himself before running to the door. What is it? He pointed to a young woman walking down the street. She had curly brown hair that flowed down her back, rosy red lips and beautiful doe brown eyes. She wore a bright pink kimono with large flowers all over it, and hummed as she walked toward them with an air of confidence. Oh shit, was all he could say as the girl neared and locked eyes with him. Hello boys. She sighed with a soft sexy smile, stopping right in front of them and pushing her chest out, showing off her chest underneath the kimono. Nishiki started to sweat. Hello Miss Sabaki. What are you doing here so far from your home in the land of vegetables? The girl giggled. Oh, me and my father came here to enjoy the festival this year. Imagine my surprise to hear that Naruto-kun was branching out here. I just had to come and see him. After all, I haven't seen him since our last date. He's lucky I like him so much, or else I'd dump him and find a new boyfriend. Nishiki and the soldier looked at each other. They both knew who this girl was. Nearly everyone did, in fact. But this explained why Naruto had bolted not too long ago. You see, years ago Naruto was in need of a trade agreement in the land of veggies, but they were going through a period of isolationism and weren't trading outside their land. So he turned to the less agreeable methods of forcing a trade leader into a contract with him. Mr. Sabaki was said man. His wife passed away, leaving him with a teenage daughter who he spoiled and pampered like a princess. So Naruto, being the slick smooth talker he was, started meeting with her and flirting with her behind her father's back. By the time he noticed what was going on, Naruto had deflowered his little girl and was threatening his reputation by publishing pictures of his daughter in less than flattering magazines as well as threatening to make her disappear. No one really knew the full story, but they knew that Naruto had threatened the man to the point where he was in tears. The girl defiantly didn't know what the love of her life did, and even he had told her she would have denied it, saying that her future husband would never do something like that. Well, Miss Sabaki, he's not here, no one knows where he is, Nishiki said calmly, trying not to sound like he was lying. She looked him in the eye for a minute and sighed. Oh pooh, and I thought that I'd get to see my love here today, she said sadly. Oh well, tell Naruto-kun that his baby came to see him. They let out a sigh as she walked away. Should we tell Lord Chairman? The soldier asked. Nishiki shook his head. No, I have a feeling that he already knows. Sitting in his hotel room, Naruto sighed to himself. Here he was, one of the youngest, if not the youngest, most successful businessmen, hiding in his own room for an ex of his. Oh, how the mighty had fallen. Leaning back in the armchair and kicking his feet up on the coffee table, he pulled a bottle of complimentary wine that came in the fridge from its place on the floor beside him and drank straight from the bottle. This just wasn't like him. Of all the people who were much more dangerous or scary than that girl, she had him hiding in his room drinking to forget about her. He had never loved her. He never even felt a bit sad when he left her behind without saying a word. All she was to him was a way to lean on her father, although they did have some fun together. Flashback. Naruto smiled his lady killer smile to the girl across from him. Don't mention it, Miss Sabaki. Nothing is too expensive for you, he told her while finishing a full-course spider crab meal. Miss Sabaki blushed. Despite being treated like royalty by her father ever since her mother passed away, she had never had another person, much less a cute guy, compliment her and take her out on a nice date. While you would think that she would have numerous suitors lining up to marry her, sadly, her father kept them away. Oh, Naruto-kun, please call me Suki. She giggled. Suki Sabaki, he said deeply, just the sound of your name tells all who hear it that you hold the keys to heaven, that when Kami-sama made you the mound broke. You truly are a one-of-a-kind lady. The blonde took her hand and kissed it softly. Naruto-kun, you tease, Suki spoke while playfully swiping at him. He caught her and kissed it too. My dear, I am not teasing. How you have remained single all this time is beyond me. Maybe I'm just waiting for that right guy to come sweep me off my feet and show me what I'm missing. He looked into her eyes and gave her a foxy smirk. Standing up, he held out his hand to her. Suki, I may not be perfect, but if you'll have me, I'd like to be the one to show you. She took his hand and he lifted her up. Please do. Naruto-kun, we've been going out for weeks now and I've been waiting for you to say that. Naruto wrapped his arm around her. Suki-chan, after tonight you'll see the world in a whole different light. Flashback. And he had taken her away from the village for a whole week, taking her everywhere to see the surrounding land and to any festival he could, and it was at the harvest festival that she gave herself to him. The poor girl could have been the poster child of virgin kind. She didn't know a thing about sex except that object went into slot B and that it was how babies were made. So when he took her for the first time, she had cried as he broke through and got scared when she saw the blood. But Naruto calmed her down, and after the pain faded, took her gently until she begged for more. Too bad for her, because when Naruto had enough of that slow fucking, he fucked her until she passed out and continued to do so for the rest of the night. While it wasn't as fun since she was out cold, he did get to do whatever he wanted to her. Fucking her in the mouth, getting himself a tittyfuck and even testing out her ass a few times, cummins in her mouth and asshole, nutting on her face, ass cheeks, back, and even around her and thighs. Then he took multiple pictures that even porn magazines refused to publish without blurring. Everything from full-body spread-eagle shots, to close-up of the semen dripping from her holes. After that he cleaned her up and, after hiding the photos, got into the bed beside her. When she woke up, she had asked him why her butt hurt, and he told her that she tripped. She bought it amazingly, and after a day of cuddling and another round of sex, she proclaimed that she wanted to spend the rest of her life with him. That ruined the moment for him, and he told her that he was way too busy to settle down, and would have to take her home. She tried to fight him on it, and tried to get him to take her with him, saying that they could run away and get married. But Naruto explained that he couldn't and that he had work that needed him to move around. That having a wife, and Kami forbid, kids would make it impossible. So he took her home, and when her father saw him, he got angry and was about to have him arrested for kidnapping. But Naruto sent Suki to her room to rest from the trip and calmly told the man that it would be in his best interest to calm down and talk to him in private. Flashback. Mr. Sabaki glared at the blonde sitting across from him in his office. This boy had taken his child off to Kami knows where and have the nerve to demand that he calm down. Tell me, boy, why shouldn't I have you arrested for kidnapping my little girl? Naruto smirked at him and handed him a document. Mr. Sabaki snatched it out of his hand and laughed harshly. You really think that I will sign this? He questioned. I already told you no. The blonde smirk turned devilish. Mr. Sabaki, I know that you will sign these or else. Or else what? Or else the world will know that your little girl is nothing more than my little whore, Naruto told him as if talking about the weather. Sabaki jumped from his seat and glared. Don't you dare call my little Suki a whore. Naruto simply took the photos from his pocket and threw them on the desk, making the man stare in horror at the images of his child's cum-covered body. Mr. Sabaki, weeks ago, when you rudely rejected my proposal for a trade agreement, I promised you that you'd regret it. I was completely fair in my previous contract, but you tore it apart without even reading all of it. He took the new contract and folded it out. Now, unless you want me to publish the rest of these, allowing the world to know how much of a slut your daughter is, and letting all sorts of men masturbate to your child's nude body, you will sign this paper and trade with me. But seeing as you basically spat in my face the last time, you will sell them to me at 20% off. Mr. Sabaki glared at him weakly. I should have you arrested for this. Naruto reached out and grabbed him by the neck, choking him. Fool, I'd like to see you try. I'll buy myself out of prison and leave the country, then have my men kidnap her from your home. Then when I had my fun, I'll sell her to a slaver. They're always looking for young girls to train as sex slaves. The man had tears in his eyes. Could you live with that? Could you go on knowing that because of your own stubbornness, the last link you have to your late wife is being raped over and over again by men twice her own age? Being forced to take a man's dick in every hole and then some? He let the man go and pushed him back. Your child's life hangs upon your next decision, old man. You'd better make the right choice. With tears in his eyes, the man took his pen and signed it before stamping it with his seal of approval. Naruto took it and smirked at the man. Good choice, Mr. Sabaki. Have a pleasant afternoon. He glared at the blonde bastard. Naruto stuffed it in his coat pocket and smirked. Sticks and stones, old man. Oh, and if you try and report anything that just happened to your lord or try to tell any other village leader about this, I won't sell your little Suki into slavery. I'll have her tortured and killed. Flashback end. It wasn't that he was afraid of her, just that he didn't want to deal with her. Besides, she was an unexpected problem. He was expecting another girl to show up later. One that had tried to marry him to try and steal all his money. The gold-digging bitch. Oh, Cammy, did you hear? Hear what? Someone was murdered in that brothel on Fun Avenue, then that abandoned apartment building was burnt to the ground. This was what Yugao heard as she walked down the street. Something had happened while she was away, and it was on everyone's lips. Rushing to the scene, she joined a crowd of onlookers as the town's civilian police force taped off the area and questioned the witnesses while two others carried a screecher with a covered body on it, the white sheet they used to hide it turning a deep crimson. She focused her hearing to try and hear the witnesses giving a statement. I was serving drinks, Jay, just like any other day. Then these people in masks walked in. They didn't even bother anyone else. They just went up to him, and there was a shriek and everyone looked to the two carrying the victim. One had tripped and dropped his end, causing the body to roll out and onto the ground. Even Yugao covered her mouth in shock. It was Shinja, and he looked like he had been mauled by a pack of wild animals. His whole face was covered in slash marks. His chest was cut wide open along with his whole neck. It seemed like the only thing holding his head on was the spin. From the looks of his arms and hands, it looked like he tried to defend himself. But his attackers just kept stabbing and hacking away at him. Even some of his fingers were missing. But the worst part was that his face was twisted in pain. It seemed like even though he was dead, he was still suffering. The two scrambled to get him back covered up and loaded on the small transport to take him back to their station. Yugao stood in shock. Someone had murdered him. Had she been there, it might have happened to her as well. But now her only lead was, forgive the morbid pun, but a dead end. Yaya sat under a small tent in the area where the Kurabara clan compound was going to be. It wasn't a camping tent, but more of one to keep the sun and rain off of her. One of her guards back at the hotel had just brought her a letter from Naruto informing her that he was giving her access to the clan trust fund, an account that branched from the main accounts that they used to fund projects. Normally all the heads had access to the trust fund, but to withdraw or charge an amount larger than they were allowed had to have the chairman's approval. While it was not needed yet, she was glad to know that he had went ahead and did that. After all, it wouldn't do for them to have to wait for him to return if he was out of town when they needed to start developing the land. She sat in her seat and sipped some tea, her personal advisor sitting beside her, while a guard stood watch behind her, all of them watching as the workers and even a few genin worked OT cut down the trees then dig up the stumps. The compound was going to be one large traditional clan house with a large front yard for ceremonies. All in all, her advisor estimated that it would cost around 62,591,250 yen for everything, including the construction and supplies needed. It would put a small dent in the clan's funds, but with their business they would make it up after all. Their trust fund was an account containing a cool 1 billion yen that would refill until reaching its cap, where the rest of the money would go into various other accounts all over the nations where they would build interest. Each head was only able to withdraw around 800,000 at one time, and only with a good reason. After all, they had their own business and made their own money. Besides, if they took any money they had to return it later. All of it was technically the company fund, and by default, Lord Chairman's. They had already purchased the land and rights to build there. With the money they were paying, teams would be building around the clock, so hopefully, they would be ready in time for the meeting. She knew that Naruto wasn't expecting it, but it would have been a wonderful surprise for him. Naruto gave her a set of plans to go by. Well, not really, but he told her in the letter that it was to be like the others, 3 floors. The first floor being a dojo and common room for normal things like parties and fundraisers. The second would be rooms that they could sleep and rest in. But the third was the meeting room for the chairman and the 8 heads, where the heads of each family would meet and discuss any business they needed to. Hey Yaya-chan. Yaya's eye twitched. Goro, what an unpleasant surprise. Goro acted hurt. Oh Yaya, why are you so mad at me? Do I really need to say? She questioned while sipping her tea. Goro scratched his chin. Yeah, I guess not. What do you want, Goro? I'm busy here. Goro took a step back. Well, I just wanted to know what happened between you and the chairman, he said while making sure he was well out of range in case she tried to stab him. Yaya glared at him. I don't see how it's any of your business, but knowing you, you'll pester me until I tell you, so how about I save us both the time? When my husband died, I was very depressed. After avenging him, I started drinking heavily because of my grief. My husband was dead, my son hates me. I was close to killing myself, but Lord Chairman stepped in and forced me to stop drinking. Yaya stopped and poured herself some more tea. One thing led to another, and we ended up sleeping together. Then when my son refused to take his father's place, he asked me to take up the title. Nothing more, nothing less. If he was anyone else, I would be appalled that I invited another man into my bed so soon after my late husband's death. But if not for him, we would have never been what we were. Goro nodded. I see. Well, what about? Yaya glared. Finish that question and I'll stab you. The man chuckled nervously and backed away, saying have a nice day, Yaya-chan, quickly before walking away before she could harm him. Yaya repressed a hiss at him, as doing so wasn't befitting of a lady like her. How dare he just come up to her and ask things like that? But then again, she told him anyway. Goro had this ability to just get under someone's skin when he wanted to know something, pestering them on and on until they caved and ended up telling. Truth be told, she didn't tell him the whole story, only a quick summary, as she was truly ashamed of herself because, while still loving and grieving for her husband, the way he held her and cared for her caused something to bloom inside her. He was so gentle, so caring and understanding. Truth be told, she was the one that came onto him. She just couldn't help herself, and the fact that she was twice his age only made it worse. As much as she hated to admit, she was just another woman who fell to the charms of a blonde crime lord. A man who could kiss you and remind you just how special you were one day, then be seen threatening someone's life the next. She didn't know why she was attracted to the younger man. Maybe because of some primal urge to be with a dominate who could protect and provide, or that the danger she could face by his side making her feel alive. But Lord Chairman would never settle down with her, after all. Who would want a woman her age who had a son that despised her? A son that was older than the blonde nonetheless. Yaya sighed sadly into her tea, careful to hide it from anyone who was looking. If only she was younger. She shook her head. How could she be acting like this? She wasn't some love-sick schoolgirl, she was the head of the Dojima family for Kami's sake. Knock knock knock. Naruto, who had fallen asleep, sat up quickly, throwing a half-empty bottle of wine to the floor where it spilled out on the hardwood floor and knocked over another empty bottle. Son of a bitch! He groaned while picking it up before the rest could spill out. Knock knock knock. Damn it, I'm coming. Knock knock knock. He stomped to the door and slung it open, the metal doorstop slamming through the door at the force and the handle denting into the wall. What? The ANBU on the other side made no movement to suggest that he was frightened, despite the fact that the wall now had spiderweb cracks along it on both sides of the door frame. Uzumaki Naruto? He asked. Already halfway drunk, Naruto gave him a blank look. No, the Kami damn Easter bunny. Don't you see my big motherfucking ears and the cotton ball tail over my ass? The ANBU ignored him and thrust a paper in his face. The Honorable Counsel Herbie demand your presence. You have 2 hours to prepare. Naruto slapped his hand and the paper from his face. You'd do well to get your hand out of my face, he growled, most traces of drunkenness gone. And what if I refuse? Then we will place you under arrest and force you. Naruto chuckled. In that case, you and your masters can suck my dick. I know the law better than the law itself. I am no more a member of this village than you are of IWA, so I don't fall under your command unless I commit a major crime. If you wish to do business in this village, you will do as your betters say. Naruto sneered at the ANBU. I always do as my betters tell me, but Kami-sama has yet to talk to me. Naruto snatched the paper. Now go back and bow between your master's legs. I can tell that you don't follow the orders of the Hokage, so tell your true lord that the chairman of Black Rose says that if he has any business with me that he can request to speak with me face to face and keep his dogs on a leash. The door slammed before the ANBU could say a word. Naruto walked back into his suite and looked at the summons paper with a frown. He despised village councils. They were all so arrogant, and thought that they were gifts to the world, acting like they were gods. Sure, the 8 family heads were the Kurabara clan council, but they were Yakuza bosses under him. They really held the power in their territories, just like he held power over them. Unlike Konoha, who could easily be governed by the Hokage, he needed the heads. The Kurabara clan wasn't the only Yakuza clan out there, and should one ever try to start a war with them, he relied on them to handle it or, if they couldn't, alert him so that they could help. Not that a war was probable. Their main rival was the Omi alliance, headed by an extremely old man who reminded him of Sarutobi, favoring peace over war. The 2 clans barely had any conflicts, despite the man's son urging him to wipe out the Kurabara and before things could escalate. Naruto himself traveled to their headquarters and worked out a deal. It was a little rough to chisel out any agreement, especially when Naruto was alone and the Omi had every family boss sitting across from him, adamant not to let any more competition rise against them. But Naruto had the gift of the silver tongue and talked his way into an agreement with some, then said to them that he wasn't afraid of war, leaking some of the demon's crimson aura to intimidate them. A deal was made. The Omi knew that they couldn't control everything and this young man wasn't bluffing, so they made an agreement over territory. Anyway, he was getting off topic. There was no way in hell that he was going to deal with the council right now, Osamu would probably enjoy it. He always was a good politician and would often tear councils a new one when they tried something by bending rules or any other underhanded means. He would have to send a quick note to him as well as this summons letter. After all, his version of politics often included threatening, beatings, and sometimes having to hide a body. Osamu walked down the street towards the Hokage Tower, where the council meet in some underground room with seals blocking any attempt at listening in. It amazed him that the Hokage allowed civilians to come and go in his tower. It didn't matter if they were council or not, but to let a bunch of fools there, where the village's secrets were hidden and the most powerful man did his work, was asking for trouble. Their clan compound was completely off limits to anyone who wasn't invited or belonged to the clan. But even then couldn't just walk in. Lower rank soldiers had to be escorted in by their captain or invited in by their family head. Not only that, but they held meetings there all the time over the smallest of things. They never used the top floor meeting room unless it was time for an official meeting or an emergency, meaning an impending war, alliance etc. He was dressed in a navy blue business suit, bearing the Fuma clan symbol on his lapel. Behind him marched 2 bodyguards. He had received that note from the chairman not too long ago, and had read the summons. Apparently, they were accusing them of illegally building on village ground, operating business without permits, and not paying village tax. Obviously they had no idea that it was the Hokage who helped the chairman, or else they would have never openly did this. But this would be a good thing for them. He was once the family's top lawyer before becoming the head, and as such he knew the laws of most countries. He had even studied Konoha laws before coming here just as a precaution, and today that would pay off. Konoha had a law that would make them regret this farce, and what kind of lawyer would he be if he didn't exploit this? In the lobby of the hotel, Naruto sat and read a newspaper. After a few minutes he had realized just how sad it was that he had been hiding in his hotel room, drinking nonetheless. He had went downstairs and handed one of the guys he had around the lobby the note to take to Osamu and decided that he wasn't going back up, so instead, he decided that if he were to meet Suki, or Kami forbid the other girl, he would just stand up to them and tell them off. But the chance of seeing either of them were slim. Konoha was a large place, and if he really needed to, he still knew a few tricks from his academy days. It wasn't much, but he still knew the basic jutsu they taught in the ninja academy, as well as the shadow clone jutsu from the forbidden scroll that he stole before quitting, and what he taught himself through trial and error. Hey Gaki, the blonde's eye twitched. Pervert. Jiraiya walked around him and sat in the seat across from him. I never could understand why hotels put these couches in their lobbies. He spoke while moving around on the stiff cushion. Naruto turned the page. It's to go the extra mile for the comfort of their guests. The pervert snorted while trying to settle himself. Comfortable my ass. Why are you here? Naruto questioned, cutting the man off. I know you're not here just to say hi. You are a busy man after all. Jiraiya huffed. I need some information from you, he said, referring to what the blonde had told him after their training some time ago. Naruto closed the paper. Some people ask for a cup of sugar, some ask to borrow money. I must say you might just be the first to ask me for information, and so boldly too. What makes you think that I'm an information dealer? He asked with a small chuckle. Jiraiya gave a small smirk. I have my sources, one of which told me about a spy network known as the Rikukentuki, said that they'd have the information they didn't. And did you find this group? Naruto asked while cocking his head to the side. Jiraiya shook his head with a frown. Sadly no. Even with my massive spy network I never could find them, but I did find out one thing. He told the blonde with his own little smug grin. The Rikukentuki, or the intelligence and statistics are, in fact, not a group of spies. Naruto looked him dead in the eye, his expression looking all hints of humor and turning cold as ice. Really, and what are they? The man got even smugger. You should know Gaki. They're your information department, a branch of your company dedicated to information gathering. Mostly for what I said before, but in fact, they dig up information and dirty little secrets. Naruto chuckled. Bravo Jiraiya. You are the fifth person ever to make that connection, he said while clapping dramatically. Tell me, how on earth did you find that out? It wasn't easy. Anything I got on them was that they were just a normal group of workers trying to find ways to improve your corporation, he admitted. In truth, it was a complete accident that I found out. I was in this gambling joint meeting a contact of mine. I was going to ask him about this group of spies that no one knew about. But he was late, so I decided to play a game. Asked a guy in there who looked older than me if he wanted to play, and he asked me the stakes. Being the polite guy I told him that it was his call. And he gave you some outrageous rate, Naruto interrupted, making Jiraiya look at him in confusion. I know exactly who you're talking about. Bald head, around 5 feet tall. 2 front teeth make him look like a rat. Jiraiya nodded. Ezawa the rat, Naruto said while crossing his arms. The most two-faced son of a whore you'll ever meet. Some of the people around gave him disgruntled looks at his language. You two know each other? Jiraiya wondered aloud. Naruto snorted. Know him? He used to work for me. Caught the prick trying to steal company information to sell. The blonde frowned. He's lucky that he didn't get sent to prison. Even had a gall to laugh when he was acquitted in court due to lack of solid evidence. The man nodded. He also knew the feeling of being betrayed. So what did you do then? The blonde smirked. The one thing no one could stop us from doing. We fired him, had him blacklisted, then drained his company bank account, before kicking him out into the streets. That would explain why he smelled and looked dirty. Naruto shrugged. I don't care. What I do care about is the fact that you know about this. Such information could cause untold problems. What is it that you need to know that would make you go through all the trouble? I need information on two things, the first being a secret organization known as the— He stopped and leaned forward. Akatsuki. Naruto hummed. And what else? I just heard that there was a murder in a town not too far away as well as an arson that burned down an abandoned building with some people inside. My own network has told me that they were the main drug dealers in their town and that both are connected. I need to know why and if the town is facing a possible drug war. Well, Jiraiya, it'll take some time, but I'm sure I could find out for you. The pervert stood up. Great, so when can I expect it? Naruto frowned. You can expect it after you pay for it. I'm sure you know that information isn't cheap, and just because you uncovered my own network's existence doesn't mean that it now belongs to you. The price for information on the murder and arson will cost you 15,000 yen, and only because you are training me. Jiraiya couldn't complain. It wasn't too steep for, and it sure was a discount compared to what it could have been. So what will it cost for the info on them? Naruto smirked and leaned back, free of charge. He blinked. Don't give me that look, I'm no fool. I know good and well that they are going to come after me sometime because of what I hold inside me. The blonde said, crossing his arms and closing his eyes. I've known for a while and I know that I wouldn't stand a chance against them, so I've been working on a small insurance policy in case they ever do come after me in the open. Jiraiya started to say something. I'll see you later, perv. I'll have the information in a day or two and then you can train me some more. Yeah, I'll see you later, Gaki. Naruto just waved him off, and just as the door closed, it opened again and in walked Goro. Yo, Rito-chan, who was the dude with the snow-white hair? Goro questioned as he walked over. Naruto never even looked at him. That my friend was one Jiraiya, the super pervert, better known as the last true Sannin. Goro nodded and straightened his snakeskin jacket. Oh yeah? I heard of him. Mostly about how he gets beat up by pissed of girls for peeking in on them. Hell hath no fury like a woman catching a man peeping in on her, Naruto mused. But all jokes aside, he knows about the spy network we set up. He came to ask for information, and the way he seemed to act about it was like he was thinking of blackmailing me. Should we, Naruto shook his head. No. He is paying me for it, and besides, if he tries I'll just expose a number of his own spies, he told him dismissively. But you can go after Ezawa. He has broken contract with us about keeping certain information to himself, but make sure it won't be traced to us. The man nodded. All right, Rito-chan, I have the perfect person for the job. Naruto nodded. Yeah, whatever. Goro cocked his head to the side. What's wrong, Rito-chan? Bored? At this point having crabs would be an improvement. The one-eyed man chuckled. Well, I found this gym down the road. It has a boxing ring we could use. What, no more street fighting? Goro snorted. Like hell I'm doing that again. Last time you beat me over the head with a folding chair. Flashback. The noise around the bar was deafening. People were screaming. Things were breaking. The racket was unbelievable. It was all coming from a bar. People were crowded around to try and see, looking through open doors and windows hoping to get a glimpse of the bar brawl before it ended. Suddenly those by the window bolted just as a man was thrown out, shattering the glass and rolling into the street, his bare back and chest getting torn up by the shards. He scrambled to his feet. That all you got, Rudo? He screamed towards the bar. 'Cause I'm not out yet, here I come. Goro laughed madly before rushing to leap back through the window. In mid-jump a metal chair came forward and swatted him like a fly, hitting him in the face and sending him back out into the street with his eyes crossed. Naruto climbed through the broken window shouldering a dented folding chair. Had enough, Goro? He questioned with a bloody smirk, his bottom lip busted. Never, he cried out only to moan when Naruto threw the chair at him, hitting him in the head again. How about now? Goro didn't speak and only twitched while the surrounding onlookers' sweat dropped. Flashback end. Naruto nodded. Good point, well then lead the way. Osamu stood in front of the council with the air of confidence around him. Before him in a half-circle sat the council, civilians on the left, and ninja on the right with the Hokage in the middle. Said old man didn't look pleased to be there either, but had to be there or else the village would go to hell and back due to their stupidity. Either that or they would be fighting a war against every other village out there, thanks to Danzo the Warhawk. We call this meeting to order and demand to know why not one, but 3 places in our village have been closed off and are now being worked on by foreign construction workers. Hamura spoke while standing up from his seat with the civilians. Sarutobi began to speak, but a civilian jumped up. Not only that, but who are you? We demanded that boy to be brought here. You are not him, so you shouldn't be here, and as such, we should seize his assets and use them for the good of the village. Osamu chuckled loudly, gaining everyone's attention. What's so funny? The same man demanded. You are. Osamu spoke with an amused smile. It just tickles me to see a group of hypocritical civilian council members who don't even know their village laws. As such, I demand on behalf of Lord Chairman and the Black Rose, an official public apology along with the standard sum of 100,000 yen be paid to us for violation of our rights as visitors and businessmen within your village. A pink-haired woman stood up. What are you going on about? Hyuga Hayashi made himself known. Lord Hokage, I must agree with the Black Rose representative. I know exactly which law he speaks of, and to ignore it will cost us dearly. What law? The woman screeched, mad at being ignored. Osamu pulled a small handbook from his coat pocket titled Konoha Laws. Village law pertaining to the rights of businesses state that the private property and assets cannot be taken away and used by the village unless there is unrefutable proof that said person or persons have broken a major law such as aiding in an invasion. Even then the case must be tried by the Fire Lord, and to even threaten a person or business is in itself a violation of national law. Offending party must issue an official public apology, and pay the offended party the sum of 100,000 yen unless said party feels that they were greatly wronged, in which they can send the appropriate plea to the Supreme Courts of Fire Country to hear the case. Sarutobi nodded. That was a law he had helped his own sensei, the second Hokage, write and pass during his time as Hokage. The need for said law was because of certain people were seizing traders' property to use for the war, which caused other traders to refuse to come to Leaf. It was a very hard time for them. Prices skyrocketed and people were slowly starving. But with that law passed, the traders who had their things taken were repaid, and soon things slowly went back to normal almost. The people who ordered it were charged for the crime and publicly executed in the middle of town, which made the Ninja Council the main council for the rest of the war, seeing as nearly every civilian member had been hanged. I agree, he spoke out. The ones responsible for this waste of time are hereby ordered to pay the requested sum. He glared at the civilian council, already knowing exactly who was the cause. I personally issued the chairman of Black Rose the deeds to those 3 properties as well as the permits needed to build and operate on those lands. The revelation caused the civilian council to pale. They had no idea that the Hokage had already taken personal care of them, and were expecting to simply do as they wanted. But now their plan was ruined and any future move would be suspicious. Osamu clapped his hands together. Well, this was a complete waste of my afternoon. Now if any of you have any other business concerning the corporation or Lord Chairman, I urge you to think about it, because you're not the first to try and pull a travesty such as this, a pitiful attempt at a hostile merger. He stopped and looked around at them all before nodding to Sarutobi as well as the Ninja Council. Now I hope you all have a wonderful evening, ladies and gentlemen. No one said anything, so he turned on his heel and walked towards the door. Oh, and one last thing, the lawyer spoke while stopping and turning his head. If any of you try some underhanded tactic to get back at us, just remember, the roots that made Black Rose bloom into the thing it is now stretch far and wide. It would be terrible for you to lose a trade agreement over something like this. He let the thought set in and smirked. Just food for thought, he stated, walking through the door and leaving the council speechless. Come on, Naruto-chan, don't tell me you're getting rusty. A bare-chested Goro chuckled as they circled each other in the ring. Naruto gave a smirk. Remind me, what was our score again? The older man's smile faded as he frowned and took a swing at the blonde, who weaved around it and punched him in the side. Ah, you hit my kidney. Goro winced as he backed away and rubbed where the blonde hit. Naruto snickered as he hopped from foot to foot. Oh, quit being a. There wasn't many people in there. Most were just working out and trying to stay in shape. People sparing in the ring had to be a regular thing because no one even paid them any attention, usually just a glance or two out of simple curiosity. Both were in nothing but their pants with bandages wrapped around their hands. They could have used boxing gloves, but they actually wanted to hurt each other more than the gloves would allow. After all, what's the fun in fighting if you barely felt it? Like Goro, Naruto also had a tattoo on his back of a black shadowy serpent-like dragon with menacing red eyes surrounded by gray clouds and a pale moon by his right shoulder. But unlike Goro, who had a slim frame, Naruto had the body of a swimmer with much more defined muscles than him, which he saw as more canvas for more ink. On the right side of his chest he had the clan crest tattooed, a black old-fashioned rose with the kanji for loyalty at the top, wealth on the right, power on the left, and respect on the bottom. He also had the old Uzumaki clan symbol tattooed on his shoulder, along with the shape of the land that used to be Whirlpool Country, his way of paying homage to the land of his late mother, who had died giving birth to him. Due to letting his mind wander, Naruto suffered a fist to the face, which knocked him out of his thoughts. Oh, sucker punch, the blonde said, rubbing his cheek. Goro smirked. Oh, quit being such a, he mocked before jumping towards his boss, his fist cocked back. Naruto ran towards him and tackled him in mid-leap, both of them flying over the ropes and onto the floor below. They both moaned and got up. Okay, the older man winced, standing up and rubbing his eye patch, which had come off during the fall. I think this is a DRA. Thunk. Goro fell to the floor and twitched. Naruto stood behind him with a folding chair. They keep these things under the ring. He laughed with a grin. That's twice I knocked your ass out with a chair. He then dropped the chair on top of Goro, who gave a small groan of pain. Oh, quit being such a and suck it up. 2 days passed by and nothing had happened besides the fact that Atlantis, Naruto's sea-themed restaurant, was nearly ready to open for business. All that really needed to be done was to wait for the head chef to arrive as well as start hiring waiters and waitresses. His other place was nearing completion too. The large traditional tea house under the monument was already generating a lot of buzz around the clans, especially the Hyuga, who had already contacted Osamu about being allowed to rent the whole place out for their tea ceremonies. It too was in the same boat as the other place. They were just waiting to hire everyone they needed and wait for the clansmen to come arrive and guard the place. As a matter of fact, Naruto had already started the interviewing process at the tea house, putting an ad in the paper looking for ladies to be waitresses, and to his surprise, the turnout was shocking. Girls ranging from the ages of 13 to 40 lined up at the door, the line stretching down the street and around the corner. So many that he had to send Nishiki alone to supervise the tea shipment with the Genin team and their sensei. So without a partner, he recruited Yaya to help with the interviews, seeing as he didn't want to give one of those ladies the chance to say that he tried anything on them because they weren't hired, a practice that many men had suffered through in the past. Next, the woman sitting next to him called, watching as the young lady, a civilian girl who wanted to work there part-time after school, walked out the door. One of Yaya's soldiers held the door open to the tea house and let in a girl just a few years older than Naruto in. Name? Naruto asked in a muttered voice, his face bit in his hands after hours of sitting on the pillow behind the low table. The girl cleared her throat and spoke in a slightly nervous voice. Ichiraku I am. Naruto's head shot up. I am? He questioned, looking the girl in the face, who looked at him and gasped. Naruto-kun? What are you doing here? They both asked each other at the same time. Yaya looked between the two. Lord Chairman, do you know this young lady? Naruto turned to Yaya. She's one of the few people who treated me like a human, he answered before standing up and sliding across the table to give the girl a hug. Kami, it's been forever. The brunette returned the hug. I know, just look at you. You're taller than me and I'm older than you. Naruto broke the hug and gave a small smile. Things changed. Speaking of which, why are you here? Don't get me wrong, but don't you work at the ramen stand with your dad? I am nodded. Yeah, but dad hired 2 other boys to help out and I don't work as much. I was planning on quitting after I found a better job. Naruto returned to his pillow/seat and motioned for Ayam to do the same. Does the old man know? She nodded. Yeah, and he understands. Those 2 guys he hired might be clumsy and well dim, but they work hard, harder than me since I've started going back to school. For what? Ayam blushed slightly. Well, I've been taking classes on art, but that's really just a hobby. What I really want to do is be a model. Naruto let the images run through his head. He had always had a small crush on the girl when he was younger, so the thought of her modeling for him turned him on slightly. He mentally shook his head to try and rid himself of the images before he did something unsavory. Well, I know you've had experience as a waitress. He spoke before looking at Yaya. You got anything to ask? Yaya nodded. How is your public speaking? Ayam looked thoughtful. Pretty good. I couldn't go out and give a speech to the whole village, but I'm not afraid to be in front of an audience. Wonderful. Now, do you think that you could keep yourself in check under pressure? Ayam nodded. You couldn't serve as a ramen chef if you couldn't. Yaya nodded back. One last thing, how do you feel about dressing up and wearing a lot of makeup that takes nearly 2 hours to put on? The brown-haired girl smirked. I'd say that it'd be the same as any other day. Naruto and Yaya looked at each other and smirked. The blonde nodded to the older woman who looked at Ayam. You're hired. Ayam gave them a bright smile. Great, when do I start? Naruto patted the pillow right beside him. You start now, Madam Ayam. She blinked. Madam? Naruto grinned. Yes, you are now the manager of this branch. It is only fair that you have a say in who works under you here at the Black Rose Tea House. She gaped. But wouldn't that interfere with my studies? She questioned, not wanting to give up her dream or the job. Naruto shook his head with a chuckle. Of course not. As manager you don't have to be around all the time, and I'd rather it be you because of how you treated me when I was young. Ayam moved to sit next to Naruto, almost thinking that it was some dream. Not only was she getting a job at a place like this, but she was managing it. It was too good to be true. Yaya looked to the door. Next, Nishiki laid in the cart in a fetal position. His mind was scared for life. The horrifying sight he had just saw would haunt his dreams forever. The horrid green monsters, their screams of youth. Next to him, a young lady with her hair in 2 buns looked at him sadly. I told you not to do that, guy-sensei. But Tenten, we are in the prime of our youth. Lee cheered. Nishiki shivered again, muttering about spandex and living eyebrows. For Yugao everything was a blur. All she could remember was receiving a letter from Jean, the man who she had been getting jobs from outside the brothel. In the letter he had been pleading for help, that she needed to meet him behind the brothel as soon as possible. She was so surprised that he was somehow alive that she hurried to the brothel where Shinja had been murdered and went into the alleyway behind it, where she found Jean leaning against the wall smoking a joint. He apologized and suddenly, she felt something hard slam into the back of her head, knocking her out before she hit the ground. Had they found her out? Did they know she was a spy? Her hands were tied as well as her feet, and a bag over her head made it hard to see. She felt herself being dragged along the ground, her shoes sliding across the surface of the floor. Where were they taking her? Were they going to torture her? Rape her? This was the worst possible outcome that could happen to a spy, to be caught and captured by the enemy. They stopped just long enough to open some soft of a door, probably to the room where they would do all sorts of unspeakable things to her. She felt them sit her in a chair and untie her hands and feet. She was about to fight them off, but the bag was ripped from her face, revealing that she wasn't in some torture room, nor was she in some horrid room full of sex toys where they would spend hours playing with her and fulfilling their sick fantasy. She was in a small restaurant, sitting at a table across from a familiar man. We meet again. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Taiga, just Taiga. Yugao looked around in confusion. I'm Yugao Yu. Taiga nodded. Well, Ms. Yu. Forgive my men, but knocking you out was for the best. No doubt you are on guard because of the death of Shinja and his boys. You probably thought that you were also targeted. Yeah. Taiga thought so. Well, you're not. Someone has taken interest in you, Ms. Yu. And so you were taken off of the hit list. For some reason you caught my boss's eye and he asked me to offer you some work. What kind of work? Yugao asked. Taiga smirked. Shinja was a small fry, the lowest of the low. He had you doing common chores like pulling off hits. I'm sure you noticed that Jean was much better at supplying you with jobs. The man stopped and pulled a picture out. It was of a man around the age of 30 wearing a police uniform. This is your test. Find him and kill him. He's a corrupt cop. He's been covering up cases for a while, most of which have been rape and molestation. Help us clean the streets of this filth and prove your steel. Maybe we'll have a place for you in our family. Naruto sighed from his place at the table. Finally, he spoke to the two women. I thought it'd never get late. They had been there for hours, interviewing all the girls young and old who wanted a job there, and finally well into the night, they were finished. Yaya nodded in agreement as she stood up, adjusting the katana at her side, before straightening her kimono. I think I'm going back to my hotel to rest, she said, fighting back a yawn. Did yawn. I feel like I could just fall asleep right here. Naruto chuckled. Come on girls, I'll walk you both home. The blonde led them outside and Yaya stopped. Hold on, I just need to do something right quick. She turned and walked back towards the tea house where two of her guards were standing by the door. Lock the place up, we won't be returning tonight. They bowed. Yes, right away, miss. She turned around to walk back to Naruto only to hear a loud scream. Running towards it, which was a feat to her as she wore a kimono, she was shocked to her core to see a man in all black plunge a sword through Naruto's gut. Lord Chairman! She screamed, rushing forward and drawing her own blade. The man saw her coming and went to pull his sword from the blonde's stomach, but Naruto grabbed the man's arm and refused to let him go. Yaya reached them in a flash, her sword singing as it sliced through the air and took the assassin's life, sending a magnificent spray of crimson across the ground and even a few windows. The roads were soon full of screaming civilians. It had happened all so fast and those who were on the street before had barely seen it all go down. The assassin fell limp to the ground, his neck sliced open like a Pez dispenser. Naruto too fell to his knees with the man's sword still buried in his gut, all the way down to the hilt. He grabbed at the handle and slumped over just as Yaya grabbed him and held his head to her chest. Everything seemed to run together, and his wide blue eyes could make out her screaming face. He knew she was screaming at him, but all was silent. The attack had been a surprise. Just as Yaya turned the corner, the man had struck, screaming about revenge while stabbing at his face with a short katana. He dodged the first two but was forced to protect Ayam when he saw her start screaming, so he pushed her, sending her stumbling back and giving the assassin the perfect chance to strike. He coughed up some blood and felt himself being picked up. Yaya's face was gone and a strange warmth washed over him, followed by the strangest feeling of calmness. He closed his eyes, then let himself go, and soon, he felt nothing at all. All throughout the village many people were feeling a sort of calm before the storm sensation. Many were worried about an attack on the village by another rival village like IWA, but their worries were unfounded. Sarutobi sat in his office, his paperwork forgotten as he lit his pipe to calm himself. He had just returned from the hospital after learning what had happened to the blonde and has been worried ever since. The doctors said that Naruto was extremely lucky to be alive, that the blade they had removed had been soaked in poison which would have killed the lesser man. But while it hadn't killed him, he was unresponsive and in a coma-like state. Naruto's four friends had all but taken control of the hospital, their bodyguards taking post in the lobby, by the elevators and all along the hall leading to Naruto's room. The three men wore angry and serious looks as they sat in the room with the chairman, and the woman had sat at his bedside the whole time. When he had arrived, he was sure that if he showed any hostility towards Naruto, not that he would, but every one of them would have fought against him, not caring if he was the Hokage or if they died. The doctors and nurses had asked him to make the group leave, but he had witnessed the large man, Futoshi, become enraged when he heard this and threatened to throw the nurse through the third-floor window. Osamu, the man who had taken care of business during the council meeting, took the time to explain to them that they would not be leaving, that they had already made a mistake of trusting the village to keep them safe. The Hokage understood their reasons and agreed to let them stay, not that he could really do anything to make them leave without causing trouble. So he sat with them and listened to the doctor report to them the extent of the damages. The blade had pierced through the left side of Naruto's stomach, breaking the bottom ribs and then cutting through his large and small intestines before poking out his back, narrowly missing the spine. The woman who had been with Naruto the whole time had only spoke to him once, when he asked if she knew who did this to Naruto. She was hiding something, they all were, he knew that much. The way they looked at each other when he asked and the way she said that she didn't know just proved it. But as much as he wanted to know and be able to help, he couldn't get into it or force them to tell. Despite the danger to the village, he couldn't risk losing alliances with trade nations. They already had shaky agreements with Suna and it was stressful enough to deal with that. He took a deep draw on his pipe and blew the smoke out, the chemicals in the tobacco helping to calm him. How could this have happened? Futoshi questioned lowly, his fists clenching until the knuckles turned white. The large bald man sat in the chair across from the foot of the bed and gazed back and forth between the blonde and the floor. The Eikato Senran ended years ago. Osamu sighed while looking down at the streets from his window. The war did end, but it would seem that someone didn't want to let it go, especially after what happened to end it. They all sat there and thought back to the Shadow Wars, the hidden war that broke out between the Yakuza families. I know that uniform, but it's not possible, Jair spoke up from Naruto's bedside. The Ueno Seiwakai were completely wiped out. Goro nodded, we saw to that personally. He muttered while leaning on the wall beside the door. Futoshi growled, I saw we hunt them down and kill the people who sent that assassin. No, you won't. They all jumped in fright at the sudden voice. Looking at the bed, they saw Naruto breathing a little heaver with his eyes open. Lord Chairman, Yaya gasped in relief, thank Kami you're awake. He ignored her while moving to look at Futoshi, only to hiss at the pain of his muscles moving too much, prompting Yaya to press the button which made the mattress raise up. Thank you, Yaya, he muttered before looking at the man across from his bed. you will do no such thing. But nothing. The blonde snapped, wincing slightly afterwards. We have nothing to worry about from the Seiwakai, trust me. How can you be sure? Osamu asked. Naruto looked at Goro. Because Goro, Sohei, and I did the job personally, he told them while leaning back and relaxing. I'm not proud of it. But the complete destruction of the family brought a sudden end to the war. No one knew who exactly to point the finger to at the time, and everyone was scared. Any evidence was destroyed when we blew the place up or burned in the resulting fire. The three others listened intently, as they hadn't known the full story. As you all know, we used the resulting fear to permanently end the war. Our clan was officially recognized by the other smaller families and clans. Then territories were drawn up and each fraction took their own little piece depending of their size. The Omi alliance also gave us part of Demon Country as a sign of respect and to show that there was no hard feelings. But in truth they had lost a lot of their own clan and were afraid that we were still angry at them, as they had a hand in starting it all. He stopped and closed his eyes. It's all in the past though. I know exactly who it is that ordered the attack, and she will die for it soon enough. Goro gave him a look of shock. You don't mean? Naruto nodded. Yes, it was her, the only person I let live. So there was a survivor, Futoshi interjected. Why did you let her live? Naruto stared at the ceiling. I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried my body wouldn't move. I had just killed her mother and father right in front of her, but I just couldn't bring myself to slit the girl's throat. Maybe, just maybe it was because of her mother pleading for me to let her daughter live. So the girl lived, Goro grumbled, looking down at the floor. Yes, and now she's taken over the remnants of her father's clan, the ones we missed, Naruto added. The door opened and a nurse stuck her head through to check on them, only to see that the blonde was awake. Oh, you're up. Hold on and I'll get the doctor. Naruto watched as she shut the door before turning to them. You have no idea who attacked me. If you have too, tell them that it was a hit from one of the village's enemies, that they didn't want us to start supporting the village at all. They nodded just as the door opened and a doctor walked in, fussing over him sitting up and possibly stressing his wound. The blonde laid back as he was told and let the nurse pull the sheet back. Due to the wound on, he couldn't wear the normal paper-like dress they made people wear, as it would obstruct their work, so they dressed in a pair of pants instead, leaving his bandaged chest bare. While she worked under the watchful eye of Yaya, Osamu and Futoshi bid him goodbye and left to help take care of his stuff while he was up in the hospital, having only stayed because they were worried. You're a very lucky man, the doctor said while washing his hands in the sink beside the door, trying his best to ignore Goro who was leaning on the wall next to him. The sword we removed from you just barely missed you spin. Naruto winced as the nurse tugged on the bandage which was stuck due to some dry blood, making her mouth a small apology. The bloody gauze was then pulled away and thrown in the trash just as the older man walked up and put on a pair of glasses before studying the stitched-up wound. You seem to be healing much faster than expected, he spoke after a minute, reaching out and touching the stitches. Son of a bitch. Naruto hissed, baring his teeth in anger. Where the fuck did you get your training? You don't poke at someone's wound, you fucker. The doctor jerked back. Yes, he coughed and cleared his throat and trying not to look embarrassed. You're healing quite well. You should be able to leave after a few days. Nurse, would you please rewrap his bandage? She nodded and got to work, ignoring the glare Naruto sent over her shoulder as the doctor left the room. Enko Mitarashi enjoyed a simple life, or simple to her standards. She woke up around 10 in the morning, showered and got dressed, then went to the dango stand just in time for the first batch of dango to come out. After that she went to work at the torture and investigation department, where she never really had to follow a tight schedule and could come in a little late if she wanted. Seeing as Ibiki, one of the few men she was friends with, was her superior and let her get away with it, usually because she gave him a stick of dango as a bribe. A small ongoing joke she had done the very first time she was late. But today when she walked in, on time of all things, Ibiki told her to report to the Hokage. At first she thought it was a joke and offered him the last dango, but when he took it and told her that she still had to report to him, she realized that he wasn't joking, as rare as it was for him to do so. So here she was, standing in front of the Hokage's desk like a child who knew she was in trouble. Enko, do you know why I called you here? He asked in an even tone. She lowered her head. Yes, Lord Hokage. Good, then you already know of what happened. Yes, Sarutobi nodded. Well, you should know what I have to do. She shook her head. No sir, I don't. Well, I have to assign you to protect him. She blinked. What dash? Sarutobi looked at her like she was stupid. Well, Naruto was nearly assassinated in our village, and that showed how lax our security is. I'm reassigning you to follow him wherever he goes to protect him. Enko blinked and gave a sigh of relief. Here she was thinking that she was in trouble, but in fact, she was being sent on a mission to protect that guy who was attacked in the village the day before. The Hokage gave her a picture of Naruto, one that was taken while he was out cold in the hospital, and a scroll. He should still be in the hospital, under heavy guard by his own people. I want you to take this to his room and talk to the people there. Convince them that you can protect him. This will be an A-rank mission. He must not be harmed anymore under our village's protection. Enko took the scroll and read the mission objectives. She had to convince his partners to let her guard him while he was unconscious, then do the same when he woke up. She wasn't to pry him for information or try to seduce him at all. That was a first, she thought blandly, due to her single status and way of dress. She was sometimes given a mission to seduce a target to steal something or kill him when they were alone. Not that she was forced to or anything, Sarutobi always gave her the chance to back out if she was uncomfortable with doing something. The only part she wasn't pleased with was that she would have to keep him in sight at almost all times. She really didn't need to watch him in the shower or on the toilet, nor did she have to drag him in so that she could keep him in sight. I'll do it, she said after a minute. When do I start? Naruto glared at the pair sitting in his room. I hate you two assholes. Yaya stifled a snicker, but Goro outright grinned. Sorry, Ruto-chan. Doctor said you had to eat the stuff they bring you, the man said with a smirk as he loudly ate a bag of chips while Yaya sipped some tea. Naruto's glare intensified. Fuck what they say. Give me a chip, damn it. Goro ignored him and ate another chip, making Naruto growl. Yaya placed the teacup on the small table beside her. Oh, calm down, Lord Chairman, she spoke in a gentle voice. They already sent you your lunch. She turned the table with the dark green plate with a large plastic top covering it, as well as a large round cup full of unsweetened tea. He looked at her, then glared before turning to glare at Goro. She sighed Goro out. He blinked. Wow. She cut him off with a glare that made the man flinch. It was a glare that put the fear of castration into a man. Bye. He was gone in a flash. Yaya uncovered the plate and pushed the table in front of the blonde. Naruto-kun, she spoke in a slurry tone, one she used to get her husband to do what she wanted. Yes, Yaya? She smirked and sat down on the mattress with only the table separating them. Naruto-kun, why are you being so difficult? He leaned towards her as she did the same. You know I hate hospitals. The only thing I hate worse is what they pass for food around here. She gave him a look, one that she hadn't given him in a long time. Please, for me, he pleaded innocently. If you do, I'll reward you. Naruto knew what she meant. Yaya, what's with you? He questioned while narrowing his eyes. You said it yourself. What happened was only a one-time thing. It's insulting to your husband. She cut him off with a sudden kiss, leaning over the table and locking lips with him and projecting her pent-up emotions through that one kiss. Naruto was stunned. Sure, he had kissed so much that it was second nature, but Yaya's husband had been a good man and a great husband/father. He had also been a great friend, so to him it felt like he was betraying the man's memory by sleeping with her. Despite having done such things before, ruining marriages and such, Dojima was a friend, and Naruto never betrayed friends unless they deserved it. The table was pushed aside, lunch forgotten as Yaya laid on top of him, careful not to lean into the bandages and hurt him. I've been holding back for so long, she panted after breaking the kiss. I know how you feel, and I felt the same way, but you don't know him like I do. Naruto looked at the woman as she untied her obi. She wasn't skinny nor was she chubby. She was the vestige of health. Her skin was fair, not too dark or too light, a shade that complemented her silky light brown hair which she had in a traditional bun. The obi came undone and she slowly shrugged the kimono off her shoulders only to cover herself with a seductive smile. He could see her tattoo wrapping around her shoulder and stopping just above her, which was of a large orange koi fish surrounded by blue waves and pink flowers. She had gotten the Yakuza tattoo after becoming the head of the Dojima family. Then had the clan crest inked black on the fish's head, as well as on her right shoulder. As the kimono pooled around her hips, she slowly uncovered her chest and leaned down to kiss him again. This time, he participated. You were Sohei-kun's best friend, Naruto-kun, Yaya admitted in a whisper. He saw you as the only person outside of the family he could trust, and if you hadn't taken lead of the clan he would have adopted you into our family. He rubbed all over her back as they kissed again, her hands gliding over his chest, artfully ghosting around the wound without seeing where it was. I think that he would be happy to know that you were the one making me happy, she told him wistfully as they broke again for air. Better you than some other fool who only wanted to take control of the family. A knock on the door stopped them. Their heads snapped over in the direction like a pair of teens caught fucking by their parents. Again the knock came from the door. In a scramble, Yaya and Naruto separated and quickly made themselves presentable. Yaya quickly put on the kimono and tied the obi around it, and Naruto pulled the sheets up like they normally were. The door opened, revealing a purple-haired woman in a trench coat wearing extremely revealing fishnet underneath. She had on a forehead protector signifying that she was a ninja of Konoha. Hello, my name's Anko Midarashi, she said after a quick glance around the room. I've been sent by the Hokage to protect you for the remainder of your stay. Naruto and Yaya looked at each other. I already told you, Hokage, the woman started, her voice in a frosty tone. Your village already screwed up once. We won't make the same mistake. Naruto nodded and added his own 2 yen. And besides, why would we need you to try and protect me? Slightly ticked off, Anko lost her professional attitude and crossed her arms. Besides the fact that you're in a hospital bed healing from a near-death stab wound, she stated sarcastically, I really don't know. She then blinked and cursed herself for possibly ruining the mission. Naruto laughed, or tried to. His wound flared suddenly and made him wince. I like you, Midarashi. The world needs more strong women like you who aren't afraid to speak their mind. The two looked at him. I should have guessed. The head of the Black Rose being injured in the Leaf Village is bad publicity. But for him to die is another thing. Then again, the old man always did treat me like a grandchild. I can't blame him for sending someone. Naruto looked her dead in the eyes. Fine, you can follow me around. But just to let you know, don't expect me to treat you like a friend. I don't know you and I sure as hell don't trust you. He stopped and narrowed his eyes at her. And don't think for a minute that just because you're a ninja means that you can order me to do something. You might have training, but so do I. And if you try to steal from me, well, let's just say missing ninja would have an easy time living on the run compared to you. Anko felt the ice in his tone. Pure icy evil just eluded from him. Had he sprouted horns and a barbed tail, she wouldn't have been surprised at all, but she pushed it aside and nodded in understanding, making him brighten up instantly like someone had flipped a switch. Good, the blonde spoke with a huge grin. Now, being a ninja, I have to ask, how much would it cost me for you to smuggle me in something to eat that doesn't come from here? Anko and Yaya's sweat dropped. Or for you to help me escape?